And we are live. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the live stream for this Saturday morning or afternoon if on the East Coast. I'm joined here with my buddy Luke from Luke's Points and Miles for this really lively debate discussion about credit cards. So welcome, Luke. How you doing today?
I am wonderful. Glad to be here. I'm missing the Ohio State Penn State game to do this, and I don't regret it at all.
All right. Awesome. Well, for us, I want someone to just let us know if you can hear both of us clearly. We're having some tech difficulties at the beginning there. And if you can see us both clearly too, just let us know about that as well. We're going to get started here with some of the comments first. M&M Studio says he got approved for the USBAR last night, so congratulations on that. Can't receive it in the mail, so wonderful. We'll go over into that rumor story that we talked about earlier yesterday, and I'll kind of go over that in more detail in a little bit. But I'm so happy that you got that card. Congratulations. We have Mr. Dugraz in the house. Hope you guys caught Dugraz's reports live stream as well. He loves debates, and so we're gonna have a really lively debate and discussion today too. We have Mr. Alfred Hewitt in the house here. He says if you have 1 to 3 cards, the Ultra Reserve is great. If you have lots of cards, though, you can do much better with higher upside. Gas, Wyndham Business, grocery, credit card, dining, 3x point card. A lot of different options. I know you're more of a part of that, Luke. You're running actually a 5% setup today in the fourth quarter. How's that going for you right now?
It's tough to say because I can plan a quarter of a setup, and it doesn't always go that way. I mean, when you have 35 credit cards, you have to pivot and move, and then you have to factor in player 2 stuff. So I have to have my player 2 does really, really well. And I've talked about how you can encourage that, but she does really well, but I don't really push that envelope too much. So right now she's really working with the city premier for that retention bonus that we were promised back in July, and I kind of forgot about. But and even now, I'm really more searching out deals and offers and things like that. Like I just got an offer on. I've talked about the Avianca credit card before, and the Avianca credit card is an Amex. It has Amex offers, but not in the same traditional sense as Amex cards. You still get the offers, but then you have to go to a separate American Express website, punch your card number in to get the offer. So right now I'm working with 10% back on the small business restaurants on the Avianca Life Miles card. So while I had a plan, it does kind of move because I can earn 4 times Avianca Life Miles plus 10% back on small business restaurants right now. So we're constantly shifting.
That's great. Can't argue with 10% back. That's really, really good. Nice. All right. So everyone can hear us loud and clear. Tim Watts says clear. Brad G says here. Matt Clausen says loud and clear. That's wonderful. Just another guy says, word about Luke's connection, though. We're trying to figure that out at the beginning. Luke is actually loud and clear, so his audio is good, but for some reason the video seems to be choppy. So we've tried to finagle a few things here, but as long as we can get the content in there, I think we're going to be in a good spot. All right.
It's strange. I've never had any issues before, but I do live in a fairly rural place, so there may be some like temporary, bandwidth issues.
Well, we are trying to deal with that, but I think we're going to be okay. So Mr. Delane Jenkins is here, says, looking forward to this. If booking economy, it's fairly hard to routinely find better than 1.5 cents per point. This has led me to deciding between these two to simplify things and maintain that 1.5 cent per point baseline. I think he's referring to that Chase Sapphire Reserve versus US Bank Altitude Reserve comparison. So I would agree that you would have a hard time finding domestic over 1.5 cents per point, but do you have other ideas, Luke?
Yeah, well, we just talked about Doug on Dugras Reports, and he just had and I'm never going to get into Alaska here in a little while, but he just transferred a bunch of points to Alaska and then kind of did some surfing and just some price checks. And domestic flights from Des Moines to Dallas, he was getting 5.5 or 7 cents per point. So I think you can get now, obviously you're not going to get great value like that all the time, but 1.5 is a great floor value. I wouldn't have that as my goal cents per point. And I know a lot of people don't care about that anyway. And if you don't want to care about cents per point, then 1.5 is a great baseline and a great floor. But I don't think it's fair to say it's tough to find better than that with domestic economy, because you definitely can.
What airlines have you found the most success in getting more than 1.5 cent per point?
American for sure. Like I would, like I just posted on my my community page the other day. I would trade all my points in miles for American Airlines and Alaska miles right now, 1 for 1. I would trade them all, just because both of those programs, just the basic value is so high. Then you have to factor in that they're more difficult to earn than any of these other bank points. We can all earn bank points every single day. It's tougher to get the American Airlines and the Alaska. I'm sorry, but I think both of those programs you can just absolutely kill it. And at that point, you would probably just forget about calculating cents per point because you wouldn't care.
Yeah. And I think that that's why this whole Hawaii and Alaska thing is such a big deal. It's because now there's a window of opportunity to get those MR points into Alaska, just like Mr. Michael Pythium, who just said he sent all of his remaining MR points to Alaska. So he's going all in. So
and that's a running theme.
Cool. Yeah. He also agrees with you, Luke. He says American is the way to go. What's the point says short haul A flights with Alaska miles or some of the last domestic deals. So he means best, but last remaining domestic deals, I think is what he's trying to say. So that's definitely a good thing to know. I personally don't fly a lot of Alaska or American. Maybe I should. It's just the routes I take right now just aren't as Alaskan American compatible. All right. So we'll keep going up. Just another guy says US Bank's point system needs an overhaul so the cards can all work together. I completely agree. Unfortunately, you can't get that 1.5 off the real-time rewards, but we'll see what happens when it comes in the future. What's going to happen with that new US Bank Smartly card, if that's going to be a situation where they can add something that's positive for redeeming, but I'm not confident or optimistic that's going to happen, to be quite honest with you. Mr. Rodriguez says Stan made it on Doctor of Credit. Yeah, I want to just take a small amount of time to just address this, because I made this community post yesterday about the rumor that the US Bank Ultra Reserve may be discontinued. And so I didn't realize it was going to be as big of a deal as it did, but I'm glad actually it was, because it does put a lot of light on this card in particular. And so I'm just going to do a quick monologue here just to explain what's going on. So if you don't mind, Luke, I'm going to hide you for a second.
I'm used to it.
Okay. No problem, Luke. So yesterday, I did this post that I said that there was a rumor going around that the Ultra Reserve was going to be discontinued. I initially heard of it when I was doing a live stream a couple weeks ago, and people were commenting about it, but there was really no undefined source. I then received messages that was unsolicited to me from sources that may or may not have been from US Bank, that were quoting these dates and times when the US Bank Ultra Tube would have been discontinued. And I didn't include those dates on the post because I didn't think that it would be something that could be factual yet. And so I said, okay, that's fine. I don't know how to really verify this source. I didn't look into it into much further. And so I kind of left it alone for a while. But then recently I had another person come on and message me, and they said the same thing with the same dates that they were quoted with the first person. Now, could have this been just some same person saying the same thing? Well, absolutely. I definitely thought of that. But because of the way it was presented, and I'm sure some of you who are YouTubers and creators know that when you get a lot of influx of information and emails, a lot of things are BS, and most things are going to be in that category. But some things do come in that are somewhat reasonable. And I didn't, in my mind, have any reason to feel that this was unreasonable or any kind of false information. And so now I have this information, and I had to decide what I wanted to do with it. And so in my mind, I had to weigh the risks and the benefits of what was going on. And so from my mind, I have been really championing the US Bank Ultra Reserve card a lot on this channel. And I think a lot of you are like me who really agree with that. And they agree of how good that card is. And I know, Luke, you and I are going to actually debate in this live stream about this as well in the little bit later. But I wanted to make sure that for those of you who I know are gardening your US Bank, your credit report for the US Bank card, I didn't want there to be a situation where you were doing that, then all of a sudden that application link got pulled. And then you were left with, well, without the card that you were trying so hard to get. You opened a checking account, you were like, guarding your credit report, and all of a sudden you no longer have this card that you really wanted. And so I wanted to give all of you, all the viewers, the opportunity to make your own informed decision about what to do. And you guys have been doing that actually. On the post, some of you say, I applied for it right away. I got it right away. And that's wonderful. Some of you guys are saying, well, I have 624, 524, and it's just not working out. And so you are not going to apply for the card because you know already that it's not going to be a favorable application that you would put in. So that was the whole point of that. It was to make you guys aware of what I have been hearing. Again, it's a rumor. I would say that it's more likely than not, but still pretty much a coin toss. And we're going to see, because the dates I was quoted is going to be sometime next week or the following week to coincide or be close to the release of the new US Bank Smartly credit card, which is going to come out in November 12th is the last time I saw the quoted date. And even at that, that was supposed to come out in late October. I think it was October 22nd, but then that got delayed. So it depends on kind of where we're going with that release. And that may be delayed too, because there's not even a date on the website about the Smartly credit card. So that's kind of what that's all about. So if you have any question about that, just leave it down in the comments. You may or may not agree with my decision to release that information. It's not as concrete or good as I'd like it to be, but it's just I'm running out of time and I don't have enough bandwidth to really follow up on the sources and vet them appropriately. So I just wanted to put that out there. So hopefully that gives you more information, and that's kind of where I'm coming from. And so I don't know if you have anything else to add about that, Luke, or you heard anything else, but I appreciate you just kind of stepping aside for a second while I just explain that.
I mean, if anyone has an audience and they receive rumors like that, as long as you're putting it out there as a rumor, you're not saying this is from a credible source, you're not verifying it, but I appreciate folks that would share that information. Absolutely. I mean, and as long as it's sort of packaged as, hey, this is not verified, I just heard this, I think that's part of why this community is so awesome, is we disseminate information super quickly to a lot of different people, untraditionally, not as a traditional media outlet. And that's kind of what this community is all about. So thanks. Even though I don't
absolutely
care. I'm not getting the card, but I don't want to see it go away either, but
yeah, absolutely. That's kind of how I felt too. I was like, if I was in someone else's shoes where I was wanting this card really badly and, I was gardening and all of a sudden the link got pulled, I would just be so devastated about it. And so I thought about that, and that's kind of why I did it. But anyways, that's going to be the only thing we talk about with that rumor. So hopefully we'll see what happens, in the coming week or two. And then we'll kind of go from there after that. All right. So Mr. AB says, I got 2 Altitude Connects within 2 months of each other. That's 8 annual visits to Priority Pass lounges with no annual fee. Still think US Bank Altitude Reserve is worth it. It depends on what you're using it for, right? And so some people use it for the Priority Pass visits, in which case I think it is worth it to keep your Altitude Connect cards. But if you're using it for spending, then obviously the US Bank Altitude Reserve is going to be better because you'll have that 4.5% uncapped mobile wallet redemption, assuming you use real-time rewards, even though you'd still get that 8 Priority Pass visits. At least that's how I would see it. I don't know if you agree with that, Luke.
Yeah, I'd rather just get into the USBAR later on because
Fair enough.
because there's a lot to unpack there, and if 2 Altitude Connects works for you, that's awesome. I don't know if I would get a second one just for some more Priority Pass lounge visits. I think there's a better way to go about doing that. But if you don't have any other access to Priority Pass, I like the fact that you're doing it in a way that makes sense for you.
Absolutely. All right, we have Mr. Dalton here. What's up? Good morning, early afternoon for Stan and Luke. Dalton has a couple questions for us in our community tab, so we're going to address those in a moment here. Jared Holbrook says, good morning. Either of you jumping on some of these low Virgin Atlantic fares across the pond that popped up after their switch to dynamic pricing? I am not, but Luke, do you know about this?
Listen, this is one of the reasons. This is one of the I like to book my travel out for the next 9 to 12 months And this is a disadvantage of doing stuff like that. I looked at their website, and I have even tried to go to London a few times, but the taxes and fees are, for me, they're prohibitively expensive in a lot of cases, especially with more than one seat. Virgin has changed all of that. You're seeing it's relatively low fees, not the $1,000 for a business class ticket, one ticket. You're seeing like 21,000 Virgin miles plus $200 or something like that. I think if anyone has the time slots available, and it just happens to coincide with the 40% bonus from, is it Chase or somewhere it has a really heavy bonus to Virgin, which there's always bonuses to Virgin, but I don't expect to see these types of deals in 6 months or a year. I think this is, hey, we're switching to dynamic pricing. Here's a bunch of goodies at once, and we're going to, periodically pare those down. I don't think I'm jumping on any of these, but you guys, if you follow my channel, I cancel a lot of trips. I thought about canceling my next trip just to book something with Virgin Atlantic, but I don't think I'm going to do that. But I think it's a great time to jump on this. 100% amazing deals that I've seen. And who doesn't want to fly business class on a Virgin product? Like, just the accents and uniforms alone, and would be pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that's definitely something worthwhile. And so if you can get those deals, definitely get them while you can. Obviously, we do have some super chats here. I forgot to see. Kid Cat says, "Sorry, I'm late. It was nap time for little man. No problem. Thanks for the $2 spot." We also have Mr. Ian Mascal. Thank you so much for that $2 super chat. Sorry, I'm late. Thanks for the info. Of course, no problem. We have some other questions too, though. Let's go on to our next question here. Code with Irtiza. Aeroplan Turkish for United and
Flying Blue, Virgin Atlantic.
Flying Blue and Virgin Atlantic for Delta can easily give 1.5 cents per point. Appreciate that. Looks like they have those options. So a lot of international for domestic flights as well is another way to get more than 1.5 cents per point. Frank asked a question: do Alaska points expire? I don't think they do.
They don't expire, but if your account is completely inactive for 2 years, they may shut it down.
Okay, so there is a little bit of that, but as long as you keep the account active, it's good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have some people coming in. Eric Folk says, "In the house, potato." Thank you. Good to see you, Eric. Anthony Bove says, "Finally made the live." That's outstanding. And Sandbox Stan, fellow Stan here. Don't see a lot of those these days. He says, "Hello again." All right. And Francis Yun says, "Greetings and salutations." We are going to head and continue on. Ian Mescal says, "I'm 724 and want the USBAR badly." That's a tough call, because when you're at that level of Chase 524, a lot of cards become a little bit more out of reach. Although I don't know, Luke, you always say that just pull the trigger, see what happens.
Risk it for the biscuit, man. I mean,
right.
Depending on how many inquiries you have, and I'm coming from a guy who has 19 or 20 inquiries, which is a lot, and I'm starting to take notice of it, so I'm slowing down now. But prior to that, fire it off, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like Casey Roker says, "Very thankful you shared the information. Gave me the push to apply, and I got an instant approval." That's like the best. You just get that. You're like, yes, I've been waiting for this card. I finally got it. So I'm really happy that you have that. Francis Yun says he has the USBAR and he's also enjoying it. And let's see here. Matt Clausen says he's still confident it lives. I just don't know about the altitude branding. Yeah, I think it's going to live and not be discontinued in the sense that it's going to go away forever. I think it's just going to maybe have no applications either for a while or for a certain period of time. Like, you can't apply for it as a new card. That's what I think is the more likely scenario. Rodrigo wanted the Redstone credit card before it got geofenced. I know Luke had this whole situation where he had a Zoom call with the bank and stuff. But now it's geofence. But you got in, right, Luke?
Yeah, I got in. I still have it, and it's still the same card. It's an outlier for sure.
Yeah. And so Michael Pythium also says, if that card gets pulled, US Bank might as well step away. I don't know. The Smartly card's pretty good. I don't know if it's as good as the US Bank Out to Reserve, but we'll have to see again when that card comes out and what that whole situation comes in. We have some more altitude reserve stuff. If they cancel the USBAR, I'd close my US Bank checking account right away. And then Chris Calvo says, if the USBAR does get discontinued, do you think the current card users will still get all the benefits? I'm on the fence that I would say yes. I think that they would still, if you have it, you get grandfathered in. That's my guess, but I don't know for sure. When US Bank cancels cards, they typically do that. And so I don't think there's any reason why they would not do that, but I don't know. Okay, so it looks like we have Juan Garcia's in the house. So hi, Juan. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. We also have, let's see, another comment here by David William. USBAR is bomb, though. Hopefully don't get rid of it. A lot of that going on. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started with our live stream here in terms of our questions. There's a couple of things that we want to go over. We're going to obviously do the debate, towards the middle of this, but we do have some questions from the community post for both myself and Luke. And so let's go ahead and get started with the first one, which is the most, I think, detailed one. But I do love these types of questions where it involves a credit card setup. And so the nice thing about when Luke and I are both here is that you get my take and Luke's take as well, because we may have different ideas and different ways of looking about this. And so this is a bit of a longer one, so just bear with me as I go through it. We'll summarize at the end. This is from Ash. Ash says, Stan and Luke, you guys are the best. Please make my credit card setup better. He has a core setup with the Chase Sapphire Preferred, Freedom Flex, Ink Cash, and Ink Unlimited with Built. He says all his UR points are transferred to Hyatt. He has a hotel setup with the Brilliant and the Ritz for Platinum and the 2 FNCs and lounge access. And he has an airline card. He says it's a Japanese version of the Delta Gold, but I don't know what that is. So just for this exercise, we'll just use the Delta Gold as the card here. And what's nice about this, I know he watches my channel because I always say that there are these tiers of credit cards you should do in your portfolio. A core setup for spending, and then the secondary setup for benefits, and then your kind of bench cards you kind of leave at the end to kind of make things, leave up your average age of credits to get higher. So he does that kind of core secondary setup. I think that's a really good way to go. And I really, advocate for that. His questions are downsides. Some of the setup lacks some important multipliers like groceries, gas, Costco, and online shopping. He recognizes Hyatt points are easy to accumulate through his setup, but he doesn't get status through Hyatt. He doesn't stay there that often. And he also recognizes that Marriott has a lot of good properties. Like you say, Luke, they have the best properties, but probably not the best program. But unfortunately for him, points are very hard to accumulate with their credit cards. And so he wants to think about replacing it with the USBAR with some Hilton Surpass to see if he can go to Hilton. He's just trying to figure out how can he make his setup better. And so what comes down to this question, there's 2 things that we're looking for. He's looking for how to improve his core setup, and also what is his best hotel credit card option in general. And so if we take his cards and we look at them, this is his setup just in general. Again, the Sapphire Preferred, the Flex, Ink Unlimited, Ink Cash, and Built are the 5 for his core setup, all earning points to transfer to Hyatt. He has the 2 Marriott cards, the Ritz and the Brilliant, to give him the Marriott status, and he has the Delta Gold or Delta Gold analog through American Express. And just to make things simpler, to answer that first question about the core setup, here is actually what you would use each card for to cover these categories. And so given all of what I said just here, Luke, what do you think we should do to help him to improve his core credit card setup?
Okay, just at my surface thought when I initially look at this, why do we have $1,000 in Marriott cards if we transfer all our points to Hyatt? Number one, and here's my opinion: you can be a Hyatt person and a Marriott person, but if you're spending $1,000 for Marriott, and Marriott has exponentially more properties than Hyatt, you may not need a secondary, and you definitely don't need 2 primary hotels. So I would make a decision there before I moved on with anything. Do I want to stay at Hyatt's or do I want to stay at Marriott's? Your status for me might be a little less important if you're only traveling 3 or 4 times a year, but I can understand somebody who says, I'm never going to get status, so I'm willing to pay the $650 to get platinum status. But if you're going to do that, stay at Marriott's and use your Chase setup for transferable currencies to, unless you're not, and I'm assuming this guy's flying as well. So I'm not a fan of airline cards, especially if you're only flying 3 or 4 times a year. So I would de-emphasize an airline card. I would probably pick a hotel to focus on. And if you do like that platinum status with Marriott, maybe that's your choice. And I would use the Chase setup for my flights and my other traveling. And if you're not completely satisfied with what you're getting there, maybe upgrade the Sapphire Preferred and then reassess from there. I think you'll probably see a lot. I think focusing on one hotel would free up the spend on other things, and you might see a big improvement just with not, instead of adding cards, just kind of reassessing it.
Yeah. I think it's a really good observation, Luke. I mean, I think it's if you're using your points for Hyatt, maybe it's worthwhile to stick with one hotel chain, especially if you only travel 3 or 4 times a year. I think QC Man also just says he's agreeing with you as well, Luke. If he traveled much as Stan, which is I travel a lot, he'd understand if the multiple hotel cards were existing, but because of not traveling as much, focusing on one hotel is probably better. I do also want to recognize that John R has joined our membership. Thank you so much, John, for that. That's awesome. Welcome to membership, and hopefully, we can do some really good things for you. And if you have not checked out John's channel yet, definitely check him out. So I would agree. I think what you touched on at the very end is actually important too, is the Chase Sapphire Reserve. I think if I were to look at this, I would say, well, maybe you can trade out those Merit cards for like a Chase Sapphire Reserve when it comes to the annual fee. That's hard to say though, because if you've had these two cards for a long time, the Ritz and the Platinum, and you've already gone through that anniversary situation, now you're getting 85K certificates every single year for that fee, which is high. But if you can get that value that one time a year to redeem those 85K certificates, it may still be worth it to have it. You're just prepaying for those stays and hopefully getting a better value for it. So that's kind of what merit cards are good for, is that they, once you get into the system and you like have that anniversary night award start populating, it'll just keep generating an award every single year. And the goal is to get a better value from those certificates than you would with the annual fee.
Just to add what you're saying is you got those two big league cards. They give you free night certificates. Now you have to use them. So now you're staying at Hyatt's less because you have to use these. So, that just kind of supports maybe lay off the Hyatt stays and focus on transferable stuff.
Yeah, I'm also curious, like how much he really travels with airplanes, because maybe, we don't know the spending level of this individual, but maybe you can focus on redeeming your points for domestic flights through the Chase Sapphire Reserve or the Sapphire Preferred if you want. You have Bilt has options too, not just Hyatt, but there's other airline transfer partners too, depending on how much you use that card as well. The Delta Gold is a weird one because again, you and I both are not the biggest fans of airline credit cards, but I will say that if you travel infrequently, it does help to have that first check bag free and the priority boarding if that is important to you. And if you travel 3 to 4 times, you have a check bag every single time, you can make the argument that it will eventually surpass the annual fee you have. So there's not as much information about that, but I think that's kind of what I would say about his airline credit card. But I think going back to what his question is about how can we improve his setup, it really is, I think, focusing on one hotel card. I think we both agree on that, one hotel system. But I think we should also address the fact that he's not covering groceries or gas or Costco or just like he's saying, like we said it already.
Chase.
Yeah. So is there a card out there that you can think of that can cover that or one of those categories pretty easily?
The first thing that comes to my mind, and if I get Chase guys, if you're a Chase guy, you're a Chase guy. But if you are a Chase guy, you're not hitting gas or groceries at least 12 months out of the year. So I think at that point you have to decide: do I start a new ecosystem, or do I sprinkle in some cash back? And if you watch my channel, you know that I like to sprinkle in some cash back. Let's talk about the AAA Visa that gets 5% back on groceries with a $10,000 cap, which is enough for a lot of people, not family people maybe, but 5% cash back that you can deposit in a bank account for these travels. Gas, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is the City Custom Cash as your only City card. Therefore it is 5% cash back because not everybody can get that Redstone Visa anymore. Mm-hmm. But I don't. But here's my thing. I think he's got a lot of cards here, and I think adding them for a lot of different multipliers might not be the best idea. I mean, I think he has a really good setup, and I think even paring down might give him a better strategy than adding at this point. Mm-hmm. And also, when we talk about the Delta card, I get the check bags, but if this guy's got $1,000 in Marriott cards, it doesn't look like he's afraid of annual fees. So this might be a guy who's flying business class, and those check bags don't mean anything. And I think if you're using all these transferable currencies, and you're only traveling 3 to 4 times a year, you can probably foot the bill for business class and not worry about that check bag. Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
absolutely. Absolutely. No, I think that's a good point you bring up because I didn't think about the business class thing. Because like we all talk about going to lounges, getting free check bags and party boarding, but if you're buying a business class ticket or redeeming for a ticket, those things are all included already. You don't have to worry
Yeah,
about that
a
stuff.
lot of times they are. And I did my point is I think 3 or 4 times a year, if you don't start traveling more than that, I think most folks in that category will benefit by adding cashback cards, or I think most of them, if they're flying domestic economy, are going to do way better with a cashback setup. The travel
Mhm.
cards are sexy, they're fun, they're fun to exercise your brain and do all this crazy stuff, but they're not the most optimal thing for everyone.
Mhm.
Hotel cards, we all know you can get a ton of value if you use it. And you're paying a lot of money for platinum status at Marriott,
Mhm.
but you're only traveling 3 times a year and you love Hyatt. So are you paying for a platinum status you're never going to use? So I would get the strategy and the mission statement squared away before I started adding cards, and just be patient.
That's really solid, man. I love how you said get the mission statement clear because the goal is really important because that way you have a way to get to where you want to go as opposed to kind of flopping around and being like, well, I have all these great cards with great benefits, but what am I really doing with all of this? So I love how you said that. So yeah, so let's pare it down. Let's figure out a way to get those core credit card setup categories covered in the way. Maybe you do a lot of grocery shopping, so maybe that daily cash a AAA daily cash card is something that's important, right? Or maybe you spend a lot on gas. You probably don't, but you probably spend a lot more on something else. But if you do, then City Custom Cash would be a way to do that, or any other of the City Custom Cash categories that can cover that thing with 5%, like those expenses. So just think about that with the core credit card setup. So that's the first question. The second question was about hotels. So we discussed that really briefly, but I want to just kind of bring this next slide up to kind of look at certain options of credit cards. These are the ones that I would think that can be used in the credit card space in a way that you can get a lot of great value. And the question I want to give to you, Luke, is do you think that there's a hotel that's the best for him given what we know about him already, or is it just kind of a toss up?
I'd have to ask him, what kind of places are you going to stay? Um, because I'm still the guy who says the Hilton Aspire is bar none the best hotel card in the game. But if you're not going to stay at Hilton resorts on the first half and the second half of the year, you're not going to be able to use all those credits. And in my opinion, Hilton points are really only good at that upper 25% of properties. They're not The Hilton points aren't great at Hampton Inns and Hilton Gardens. So if you stay at those more budget friendly properties, there might be a better card for you. The Wyndham Business Earner is a monster card. It solves a lot of problems if you stay at those types of properties because it solves your gas problem. I think Wyndham properties are the points are really nice, especially in places like South America. I don't know about Asia. The Hyatt card, no, thank you. I don't understand that card at all.
We know
The
how you feel
choice,
about that card.
yeah, because he's already earning tons of Hyatt points. Even the Marriott Brilliant card, I think to make that card make sense, you've got to be all in on Marriott. You've got to use that thing. And 3 or 4 times a year, I don't think is enough.
Mhm.
Just moving down the list here, choice privileges. I think that's going to be for a certain, I don't know if that's a good primary choice because you're not always going to find a great choice property where you want to stay. The IHG cards, I'm a big fan, and that is going to depend on how many days do you stay somewhere. If that 4th night free it is valuable to you like it is me, like 4 nights is about my max. So to get that 4th night free, the IHG points are going to be pretty valuable considering I'll get the platinum status, the 4th night free, and I can buy those points at a half a penny each, which going back to our original question, that makes your 5% cashback card at grocery stores a 10 times IHG point earner. Pretty cool, I don't know what you want to call it, synergistic effect, I guess. But it's hard for me to give him a really good answer without knowing where he stays, what kind of properties he stays, and for how long. But I do say that the business Wyndham earner is if you stay at Wyndham's. I don't think that's a very difficult decision. It's a great card. If you stay at higher end Hilton properties, again, I think you have to put in a certain amount of days for that card to make a lot of sense. I know it makes money in theory, but I don't know if it's worth jumping through hoops for twice a year. I don't know if 3 or 4 trips is going to be worth a hotel card for me.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with all that you said. I mean, you have familiarity with all of these programs, which I think is really great. To have a way to really give us your experiences. And I'm a little bit less. I don't have as much experience with Wyndham or Choice or even Hyatt for that matter. But what I would say for this particular question is, I notice he has the Brilliant and the Ritz-Carlton. And so because of that, he probably likes to stay at higher end properties. That's my guess. I don't know that for sure, obviously. But one thing he mentioned that I think was important to bring up is that it's hard to earn Marriott points if you're not getting welcome offers on their cards. Their cards that earn kind of terribly. You earn 2x on everything else on basically all the cards that they have. And 6x on Marriott, which is fine. But I had a previous video where I talked about how it's better to just earn a 3x on a green on a City Premier, a Star Premier, or a Wells Fargo card. That's probably better to do than do 6x Marriott, which is a little more limiting. So he's right. It's really hard to earn Marriott points, which is why I think it's so important to use these free night certificates as an alternative to getting points, which is not the same to say as Hilton and IHG. You and I both know, Luke, that there's a really great way you can get that 100% point bonus every single year by buying points. Now, it's not free, but you are giving the ability to book at a significant discount if you find the right property. So I like how Ash is talking about maybe shifting over to Hilton to Surpass, because that may be one way for him to get into a different system that is probably more amenable to what he is looking for. I really like the the Brilliant card and the Ritz card, but it may just not be the right setup for him. Maybe he wants something that's more easier to get points, which Hilton is by far the easiest. If you look at the 3x, the points buying situation, you have the 5x business if you want to go that far for the catch-all, and even IHG too. And so those are some things to think about as you figure out, Ash, where you want to go with your hotel strategy. And so I don't know what you feel about that, Luke, or if that makes sense to you.
When you said Surpass, something clicked. I think the Surpass, you can, whatever terminology you want to use, net neutral annual fee. You can purchase gift cards to kind of offset that annual fee. You can earn a lot of points, and you can get that free night certificate if you spend enough on it. So I think maybe in his situation, the Surpass, but I would only say a Surpass would make sense if you're going to change that original strategy in the first place. I don't think you need 3 hotel cards to do 3 trips a year. And also, I would even say with the Marriott cards, as far as Marriott points value, you could be better off booking those Marriott properties through the travel portal with Chase at 1.25 cents. That's a decent value for hotel points. It's a very good value for hotel points. So they're difficult questions because this setup doesn't look balanced to me. It looks like it looks like we went after a few, maybe emotional credit cards that looked really good at the time. And I think like a tree, maybe you prune it and then figure out where to go from there.
That's great. I think that you brought up a great point about the Chase travel portal getting 1.25 cents per point on Marriott. I think that's another great thing that I never even thought about. So that's definitely a great recommendation. So I think we're going to probably leave it there. I think that was the last part of this. Yes, exactly. So we're going to go ahead, and before we get in, there are 190 of you in the chat right now. So really thank you so much for being here. Definitely hit that like button if you would like, if you think you are getting value. I don't know how many people like the, video yet because I can't see it, but if you can, that would be awesome. So thank you so much for being here, and I hope you will enjoy it because we are coming up to our point where we are going to be doing that live debate between different questions. I know you're going to really enjoy that. Real quick here, we're going to go ahead and just say Rodrigo Mendez asked you, Luke, he wants you to add him as an authorized user on your Redstone Visa signature card. And I don't know if you can do that or not, but that's just a request that I wanted to make sure that was given to you.
If he moves to northern Alabama or western Tennessee, I'll add him. You have to live there.
There it is. Travel with LV says, "Hey guys, hope you're doing well. Good to see you, buddy. I love this guy. Great Instagram. He's got a lot of good stuff when he travels. A lot of good insights on the programs that we talked about, like Hyatt. And so definitely check out his Instagram if you can." Okay, so we're gonna keep on moving because we got some things to go here. We have some community questions that we want to get through. Real quick, we also have Mr. Delane Jenkins dropping a $2 super chat. Thank you so much for that. Appreciate the value you both add to the credit card game, and you're welcome. You and I, Luke, both love doing this. We love talking about it, and so it's just our pleasure to be here to just entertain you guys, and again, maybe do some education on the side. Okay,
Absolutely.
so first question is from Dalton, who was here earlier. What kind of card setup should you focus on now that will get you the most value over time? Flexible point currency, airline hotel status, etc. Do you have any ideas, Luke, of what kind of card setup that you think you should focus on now?
Yeah, if I was, this is kind of it's not a very specific question, but I think without specific goals and parameters, I think the best credit card system someone should focus on right now is going to be transferable currencies that can be cashed out. And, that's either Wells Fargo, Chase, or Citi. Now, I do maintain that you can cash out Capital One miles with their purchase eraser option. But American Express might not be the best setup for you. But I would advise folks not to get totally into a hotel or airline ecosystem, because your opinions on those things might change, and you don't want to have those points kind of orphaned in a program that you're not using. You protect yourself from devaluations. You protect yourself from your changing style with transferable currencies. And I'm not a Chase fanboy, you know that, but it does seem like for your first few years in the game, Chase is the way to go. Unless you have very specific goals and very specific things you want to do. And in that case, there could be different options. But even Citi, you can cash out for a penny. And in my opinion, Citi's slept on even still. So Chase and Citi, I think, are your best bets for that kind of flexibility. But I'm a big fan of flexible point currencies. And, if you're not traveling, you cash them out.
Yeah, I agree with what you said, Luke. I think it's really important that we start with the end in mind every single time, right? And so we have these flexible point currency cards, and I agree, those are the best card setups to really start off with your core setup. Because we know that when we transfer them out to transfer partners, you will get the highest amount of value from them. But the question is, which transfer partners do you think you'll be transferring them out to? Like, are you going to be a world traveler? Are you going to Asia? Are you going to go to Europe? Are you going to fly domestically? All that plays into that idea of what would be the best setup for you that will get you the most value. So I think if you start with the rewards programs first, that are the transferable currencies that you can transfer to and kind of work backwards, that will help narrow down things. Because as you know, Luke, Amex has certain transfer partners and Chase does. So does Citi, and so does Wells Fargo and Capital One, and they all have different ones. Some overlap, some don't. And so that's one way to look at it. But yeah, I would agree that flexible point currency cards are the best. Especially Chase is nice only because you can do both cashback and flexible points, right? So transferable points. That's important because you may come a situation in your life where you're not traveling as much. And so instead of swapping out your entire setup for something else, you can just already take the same cards you have and then switch to a cashback setup. And so it gives you the ultimate flexibility, even though the earnings may not be as high as some of the other cards from American Express or the other issuers, for example. But that's what my take on this question is. Any last thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would just I think we get caught up in the flash and the glitz and the glamour of travel points. If you've got 1 million travel points, you're not doing it right. If you've got 6, 7, 800,000 travel points and no trips planned, you're not doing it right. Cash those out. You can use cash for anything, and you can always earn more points. And don't be afraid to add a cashback card to your setup. It turns out in real life, you can buy a plane ticket with cash. You could buy a hotel room with cash. You could buy a nice dinner with cash.
We all forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're not as sexy. They're not as cool, but
they are options. Yeah. I mean, my setup as it currently stands, is a hybrid setup. I have the U.S. Bank Out Reserve. It's basically cash back. I have the Built, which is transferable currency, and then I have the Premium Elite card, which is also a cash back, essentially a card. So I have that, but I also run those other hotel cards on the side too. And so it really depends on what you're looking for. I just find that simplicity is better. Like I am not as talented as Luke looking for all these flights and like figuring out the cents per point and getting the maximum value. It takes work, like he says. And you really do have to do the work to get it. There's a lot of tools coming out now that are better than making it easier, but it's still going to be work. Like for me, I'm just like text message, RTR, redeem, the end, right? That's all I have to deal. And that's, for me, it's pretty nice. But again, Luke finds this very fun. And so that's a part of it too. You know, he loves that, loves the game of finding it. And I know a lot of you in this chat also do as well. And so that's totally fine. Everyone has their own likes and dislikes. And so just find the one that works for you. That'll guide you to that most valuable setup for your own situation. So next question is also from Dalton. He says, what's an underrated card or benefit or perk most people don't know about or use that you have used or discovered? And I really struggle with this question because I don't know if I really have one. I think if I were to start, I would say that we always talk about the Premium Elite credit card from Bank of America as being kind of a cashback card, but there is that 25% boost if you book air travel through the Bank of America portal that people don't talk about, and it can really bring those elevated point multipliers to an even higher level. So, for example, if you're Platinum Honors, you earn 3.5x on travel and dining, you can go up to maybe 4.1x if you book your points through airlines, as opposed to just redeeming it for cash back through your checking account. So that's one thing that I've used in the past that I don't think is talked about as much. I don't know if it's like underrated because there's clearly Chase Reserve and Sapphire Preferred can do same or better. But I think that's something that I would mention as something I've used that is not talked about as much. Do you have one, Luke?
You know, part of this community is we have guys like Stan that if there is an underrated credit card perk or benefit, we get that out there. And we kind of compete where we want to be the first to get it out there because we want to show everybody how to get the most value they can. But I do have what I think is an underrated credit card benefit. And maybe I like the underdog, but people trash Hilton hotels and Hilton honors programs so much. I think a lot of folks fail to realize just how valuable gold status is. You're not going to get a bunch of upgrades in the United States. You're not going to get the presidential suite, but if you really dig into that status and you stay at a lot of Hilton properties, the food and beverage credit it prints money. Let's say you stay at a Conrad or a Waldorf, which I understand is a higher end hotel, but as long as you put someone else on your reservation, like I will always put my wife on the reservation, even if I'm traveling solo. Who knows if she might show up? Who knows? But when I do that, I get double the food and beverage credit. So you stay at a Conrad, and let's say it's a solo trip, but I'm going to put my wife on there anyway because she's my wife. I'm going to get $50 a day for the food and beverages. And I don't know how many nights a year I stay at Hilton's, but if I stay at 10, that's $500. That's not an inconsequential amount of money. If I stay at 20, it's $1,000. And then when you use that to offset your credit card fees, you can get gold status with the Surpass card. You can get gold status from an ancillary benefit with the Amex Platinum card. We don't really throw that in with the value prop for the Platinum card, but I think the Hilton in particular, the gold status is so underrated, and I think you can get so much benefit from it, especially at volume.
I totally agree with that. And Rodrigo also agrees with that. He says the My Way benefits credit when having gold or diamond Hilton status. It is clutch. He does agree. And I just have a question for you, Luke. Can you eat $50 in breakfast every day?
I should sure try. Well, see, a lot of times for me, it does get to that point where I have to go try to spend it.
Mm-hmm.
And usually that credit will go to like the hotel store. So maybe you get some snacks or you maybe suntan lotion. I don't know. You if you want to, you can use that credit. A lot of times I do forget, but yeah, I could probably eat $50 worth of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm
sure. I mean, with prices these days, you definitely could.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think that's a really great perk that we definitely need to make sure people know about is that Hilton Gold status because I have that too, and I don't even like honestly have a need to go to Diamond status because I
Mhm.
don't really travel that often internationally, and I get so much value from Hilton Gold already that I
Yeah.
don't know why I need to even bother. I know I eventually will because I will eventually get that Aspire card at some point, but it's really more of the back burner situation where because Hilton Gold is so good, like it's not something I'm like really itching to get Diamond status. Although I know it's very good, especially internationally for those
Yeah.
upgrades and that sort of thing.
Oh, I
Yeah.
got one more that I just when you said overseas, um, Rodrigo says diamond status. The one thing everybody seems to forget about diamond status overseas, they focus on the upgrades, but listen, if a Hilton hotel has a lounge, you get access to it as a diamond member. I think that completely changes the game. If you want to do a little bit of work, usually they have a happy hour where they give you some free booze or some free food, free coffee. You don't have to go anywhere for coffee. I think the lounge access for diamond members is also an underrated benefit. If and you have to be careful because you have to pick properties that have a lounge. And then sometimes you even have to call them and say, "Hey, is this lounge going to be open?" So I do love the hotel lounges just as much as I like the airport lounges.
Yeah, yeah. And Jared also says here he takes the wife and kids to Fort Lauderdale, Canada, which I know is a really good one for you, Luke. You go there
Yeah,
often for 5 nights soon, so fifth night free. Good job. He's gonna finish everyone's food and beverage credit as needed.
no problem,
That's the
man.
way to do it. That's the
Yeah,
way to do it, man. All right.
absolutely.
So we're gonna go to our next question here, which is Mr. Cesar Joel. We call him Hermano Cesar. Definitely check out his channel. He's a great Spanish speaking credit card channel with a lot of great information out there as well. He wants to know from you specifically, Luke, on your opinion on Hawaiian miles to Alaska transfer using MR points, and if you ever had award availability issues when redeeming Alaska miles. We did discuss this a little bit earlier,
Yeah.
but what's your take on this?
Well, I transferred most of my MR points to Hawaiian and then to Alaska just very recently. And I mentioned it earlier. My take is Alaska and American Airlines miles are hard to for me. It's hard for me to procure in large amounts. They're super valuable. Whereas American Express points and some other transferable currencies, I can earn those every day. So I transferred 150,000 over to Alaska. That's not a lot compared to some people, but I don't usually have 150. I usually use them before I get any large number. So, and I looked at award availability, and Alaska seems really super versatile with how you can use them. You can book a flight on Latam to Lima, Peru. You can book a business class flight to Rome, Italy, but you can also do the Columbus to Dallas, Fort Worth. I think I think they get lost in the shuffle because of the really sexy redemptions with Singapore Airlines or ANA. But Alaska, man, they're a big leaguer for sure. And I don't, I think they're probably one of the most versatile currencies for me because like I said, I can do Columbus to Miami for 4,500 Alaska miles. That's insane. But I can also do Philadelphia to Dublin, Ireland for 45,000 Alaska miles. So I'm a big fan. I don't know if I would speculatively transfer all your American Express points out there if you don't have any plans or you've never used them. But for me, I know I'll use them, so I don't have trouble. I just booked it. Talk about versatility. I just booked 4 tickets from Columbus to Grand Cayman and back
Hmm.
for crazy rates on Alaska. They're American Airlines flights, but they're on Alaska miles. 15,000 one way in business class, 7,500 in economy. Not bad, man. It was so good of a deal. I'm taking an extra kid with me.
That is fantastic. What a ridiculous redemption. Good job.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard like these stories of how good Alaska miles can be, but it's really great to hear real life examples of the kinds of redemptions you can do, especially to bring a family. Cause I know a lot of us have families here. Um, you know, s- says
That
Dad Luke, he's a Bengals fan. I don't know if that
That's
is.
Carlos.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, hey, well,
I am his dad.
we'll have to wait for questions for Carlos later on. But
Yeah.
I think he loves the Bengals. I actually don't follow football as much as I used to anymore. Hopefully, they're doing better than
They're
before.
not.
But they're
Yeah,
not.
they're
Okay,
not.
fair enough.
Hello,
I do want to
Charlie.
mention one thing about Alaska miles, though, is that so for me, like I'm going to be going on my honeymoon soon, and I know that Japan and Thailand will be probably recurrent destinations for my wife and I. We're going there for a honeymoon in a couple weeks from now, and I was trying to think about how I would get more points into that ecosystem to fly to those places. So there's Singapore Airlines, which is fine. A lot of points go to them, but also I've looked a lot into Japan Airlines because that looks really nice. And of course, I'm going to fly with them when I come back to for my honeymoon, and we'll see what's going on. But I'm trying to figure out how to get more points into them. And the ways I can see getting into them is obviously the One World Alliance. So there's American, there's Cathay Pacific, and then there is Alaska. And so I don't know if you have any familiar, if anyone in the chat knows how good is it to put Alaska miles to transfer that to Japan Airlines or book Japan Airlines flights using Alaska. If that's a possibility or is that not a possibility? I don't know if you're familiar with that at all.
I think you can do it. You can use American Airlines, and I think you can do Alaskan as well. And that's always been a pretty good sweet spot. I'm not as versed with the Asian redemptions because the reason is I don't normally have enough time to go to Asia. That usually requires a little bit longer than 6 or 7 days. But yeah, like Wong Wei says, JAL business. Yeah, and
There we go. Yes, he likes the 787, but he does say the A350 is the best product. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see kind of like if I can figure out a sweet spot for that or not. But yeah, I mean, I think the Hawaiian Alaska thing is open right now. So if you have any MR points you want to just put to Alaska, now is a good time. I don't know how long it's going to be open for. I would imagine to like the end of the year, or like next year, but nothing crazy, right?
yeah, I think when the relationship with Hawaiian and the Amex ends, and I don't know. Yeah, I would say that if you want to transfer them to go ahead and do it, I wouldn't wait. But that's how that's my style with everything. If it's the objective, go ahead and execute. Don't wait.
That's right. I love the way you just make a decision, you go for it. Like I need to be more like that, and I try to do that every day of my life. But sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I want to apply for this card, and so I got to be better, more like Uncle Luke. Got to learn from the best. Ian says he was not suggest spending time in Bangkok. He would focus on Chiang Mai, Phuket, and the islands. We're going to go to both of those places actually for our honeymoon, both Bangkok and another location as well, Phuket for our honeymoon. So that'll be good to see what that's like. And so I'm really excited to see that and see what that looks like. And we'll make a decision after that to see what our next destination is going to be. He also says Alaska is either 10,000 points more or 10,000 points less than American is for 70,000 for JL to Japan. So it seems like it depends on the situation, but you can use Alaska miles for JL, which is kind of the idea. And I don't want to speculatively transfer MR points to Alaska because they do have Cathay Pacific as a transfer partner, but that's another story for another day. But I appreciate everyone chiming in here about that. So another question is from my man JP Knowledge, came in at the last minute last night with his question. Luke, you love award programs, but which one annoys you the most?
That's a really interesting question. I don't know if there's here. I can tell you a lot of good things about some award programs. Like every time I've ever called Virgin Atlantic, I've gotten an all-star customer service agent. Like you can almost as soon as they answer you're like, oh, this dude's squared away. Flying Blue, all-star customer service. But both of those programs charge you a fairly substantial fee to cancel. That is annoying to me. The only thing good about it is, let's say you book a Columbus to New York with Virgin. It's a Delta flight, but you book it through Virgin. They're only going to keep your $5.60. So who cares? But annoying. I would also maybe I put Hilton in there, and this is why. Domestically, Hilton's fine. As soon as you go over to Europe, I can't put 3 people in a room. And if I want to take Carlos with me, it's not a 60,000 point night, it's a 325,000 point night. And it's like, no, come on, man. So that is annoying. And I'm trying to think if I've had any bad experiences with. A lot of people are going to say Avianca, because in the past Avianca has had really buggy website and really quirky different things, but all that has improved. Yeah, so I would say, the any program that charges a fee to cancel, and it might be like 50, 75 pounds or euros or dollars to cancel. If you have to cancel, you have to cancel. So it's just part of the game, but it's annoying when you're like me and you cancel half of the trips you book.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. You definitely book and then you make sure you get the right booking, but then you always want to make sure you have that ability to cancel. QC Man says it's just the British accent, Luke, regarding to the British Airways.
Well,
Makes him sound competent.
maybe this is a wrong thing to say, but you're not always going to get a British accent when you call British Airways. There are several different people that live in the UK that don't have a British accent.
It's very true. Rodrigo also wants to mention that all his friends on Instagram are surprised at the trips I book with points. Learn it all from credit card YouTube like Stan and Uncle Luke. We appreciate that, Rodrigo.
Hey,
Thank you so much for that comment.
You're doing the work, man. You do it, man. Good job.
That's right. We're here to just give you information, and then you can use the information in whatever way you want. But I know you're doing it right because you're making these awesome trips. Ian Maskell said he was on the phone with Virgin today. He had an awesome representative since his fees were less than $50. They didn't even charge me a cancellation fee.
Awesome work.
Great. Yeah, I know for me, I'm not as well versed as Luke is with award travel, and so I can't like really talk about that. But I can tell you that from like the more flexible points, hotel side of things, surprisingly, the award part that annoys me the most is actually Marriott. And it's actually the same reason why Ash mentioned in the beginning of our sequence here is that it's really hard to earn Marriott points unless you're going for welcome offers. The 2x on each card is really low. You can't really get that much out of it. And then you typically use your credit cards for Marriott's when you stay at Marriott's. But because it's only 6x and there's other alternative options that are better, I don't use my Marriott credit cards for spending either. So I end up just not getting Marriott points unless I actually get a new credit card or if I stay at a Marriott property. And so I don't end up doing, getting the points that I like. And like other programs like Hilton or IHG, where they're much more easier to get, whether you can buy them or you can actually use a card to stay at their hotel properties. There's a lot of things here. And it looks like your son is here in the chat box.
I think we're here alone. So he's watching the stream downstairs. He says Luke likes making trips and taking me all over the place. And listen, Stan, my favorite thing in the whole world is taking my little boy to a new country or a new place. It's big league dad life, and I've kind of expanded that. I like taking people like his sister or his brother to places where they might not otherwise be able to go. It's super fun. It's the power of the points and miles.
Yeah, that's so funny. Well, he's really lucky to have you as a dad. And it seems like you have a really good relationship. He seems to be asking you a few questions about your appearance and if you're tired or whatnot. He just doesn't know.
I think I'm lagging. And maybe I'm stuck. Like,
it's okay. We're working through it. Your audio is perfect, and that's really all that matters because we're really getting through all the questions. And as long as the audio is good, we're good. David Williams says, making me go over the place. And then Wong Wei Travel says, Luke, didn't you say you went to Ireland? When did you go and what did you fly? That was a while ago, like a couple years ago.
Yeah, I think it was my first family redemption overseas. And we flew Delta. We did and we didn't even fly business. We flew what do you call it? What's the middle? Delta
Premium? Economy Plus? No.
Yeah, it's Comfort Plus. Yeah.
Comfort Plus, yeah.
We flew Comfort Plus, and me and my wife both looked at each other and we said, never again. No more Comfort Plus overseas. But yeah, we flew Delta. It wasn't bad, but
could have been better.
Could have been better. Could have been better.
All right. So we'll go for a break now, but actually we'll just keep going because I think we have more questions. But right now there's 200 of you in the chat. I think we reached 210 a little while ago. So that's definitely an all-time high for this channel. So thank you so much for being here. Again, if you are getting value, please hit that like button on the video. It does really help out with this live stream and to push out to more people so they can learn more about credit cards from you guys, as well as myself and Uncle Luke. So thank you so much for that. We also go on to our next question, which is Boxer. Boxer says, this was actually something I was saving for Luke's live, because we know you do, I think, almost weekly or bi-weekly lives as well.
Yeah.
But since he's with you, if Capital One ever did a points boost like the CSP in the portal with 25%, would it be overrated or overpowered? Oh, and keep the annual fee. What do you think about that?
So if people who follow my channel, they pretty much know I am a Capital One guy, and I love the Capital One Venture X. In my opinion, there's two things that could blow this game wide open. This is one of them. If Capital One Venture X gave a 25% boost in the portal, it's a really, really big deal. It's overpowered. It's great because with 2 cards, you can kill the game, period. The other thing is, if Citi gets American Airlines as a transfer partner, I think that blows the game up completely, because I just talked about how much I love American Airlines points miles. But yeah, I think this one, if Capital One gave you 25% in the portal, man, they have the same issues as well, they don't have a gas multiplier, but you can really kill the game with 25% and 2 cards for sure.
Yeah, or we can combine both. I think you were saying 2 cards. You mean the Capital One Venture X and the Saver One?
Yes,
yeah. A Saver Rewards now. They changed the name of the card, but Saver Rewards card. Okay. Yeah, but even with the gas thing you're talking about, Luke, you also have the Citi Custom Cash Card. Like, you can always just slot it in anywhere you want, which is pretty cool. You know?
Yeah. But I think you get it down to 2 cards, not a chase trifecta. You can do 2 cards, and it's a lot easier to sell player 2. It's a lot easier to I can see people taking this and, the Capital One Duo is my card, and I just get sign-up bonuses on the side.
Absolutely. Rodrigo says his main issue with Capital One is the lack of good hotel transfer partner. Choice and Wyndham don't make the cut to me. And I can agree with that.
None of that matters with a 25% boost in the portal, because now you're getting 1.25 cents per point on all your hotels. You don't need a hotel card.
That's true. It's a good way to put it. Sunmaster says, what if the Venture X got the 50% boost of the CSR? Can you imagine?
Game over. It would, in my opinion, it would make it the most popular card in the game. Maybe even more popular than the USBAR.
No. And that debate's coming up real soon here. But yeah, it's this is definitely something to think about. So Capital One, if you're listening, you want to blow up the game, this is your chance right now to put that 25% portal boost on there and see what happens and let that card fly. All right. So the next question we have is from Badugu. Badugu says, can we figure out the built targeting criteria for the 100% transfer? Is it still worth the squeeze beyond the red points? So let me set the stage here, because I don't think you have the built card, Luke, or looked at it. So basically what happened was there was this rent day yesterday, right? And this rent day basically had this transfer bonus for British Air Avios. And you could get a 50% or 100% transfer bonus on the day. That was yesterday, by the way. And usually that's something that we're all like familiar with. But what we're used to in the past was we used to have a transfer bonus, for example, with Aeroplan about a year, like February, so about 10 months ago, where if you were blue, you got 75% boost. If you were silver, you got 100%. If you were gold, you got 25%. And if you were platinum, you got 150%. So as you go up the tiers, you actually got more points transferred. The issue with this time around was that people were reporting that you only got 50%, 100% depending on like you as an individual, no matter what your status was. So if you were blue, you get a 100% bonus. But if you were platinum, you could get a 50% bonus too. So there were a lot of data points showing that it was kind of random, and people were trying to figure out, was there some kind of criteria? Like, do you hold money on your card? Do you spend a lot on your card? Do you have a lot of frequency of transaction on your card? Like, are there certain things to think about how you would get either the 50% or the 100% transfer bonus? So myself, I got 100% bonus. I'm currently silver. I didn't use it because I don't fly on British Airways, but it is good. Let's not like go too far into it because this is a no annual fee card offering a transfer bonus of at least 50% to obvious, which is still really good. I think it was just a matter of people were not as happy with how if you were blue, you get 100%, but if you were like silver, gold, or platinum, you could get that too. So that was a story. I don't know if you heard about that or looked into that at all, but I wanted to kind of preface that before we went into this question. Did you have any thoughts on that, Luke, or did you have no idea?
The build is hard for me because I don't really cover it. I think it's gimmicky, and I just don't see a lot of people earning a ton of points in the built rewards program. So I don't follow it. I don't cover it. Yeah, I don't have much of an opinion on it. I don't think it's a bad card. I don't.
Yeah, I've been kind of moving away from the built card, to be completely honest with you. I still use it for rent and the 5 transactions, but because they cut that rent day from 10,000 points to 1,000 points maximum, it really kind of just did not do a good positive thing for me. And so I feel like they're kind of just giving you these things, and now that they're just giving random transfer bonuses to random people, regardless of your status, like why do you even bother going through the built reward system? Because there's no point. Because if you're going to give a 100% to a blue and a 50% to a platinum, like that doesn't make any sense. And so again, these are all data points. We're all just trying to figure it out. We'll see what built does in the future, but I feel like they're cutting back benefits and they're just a little bit kind of trolling us a little bit on these things. Like, you're giving us these good benefits, but there's really no rhyme or reason to them. Matt Clausen says built targeting, I think, was done to get those who haven't been as active to get 100%. So I can see that they want to make people use their cards more. So I totally see that situation. But I don't use my card often at all. I still got 100% bonus. I use it maybe like 5 times last month, maybe 6 times. Nothing crazy. I just do it enough to get the 5 transactions, and then I kind of just stop a little bit. But there's that. Okay, so kind of start with that. Oh, one more thing. Ian says he got 100% as blue, but only have 350 points. No card, only a rewards member. So you don't have to have the card in general. It's just the built rewards thing. So that's kind of how this is going right now with build. So we'll see really what happens. The next question is also from Badugu. He has a bonus question for us. What is one card that you can pair with Amex Blue Business Plus with transferable points that you would suggest? Did you have a card on top of your mind? I can go first if you'd like.
Go ahead.
Okay. I think so. I'm of the fan that you should put a setup and be as simple as possible in terms of not spreading out all of your spend across multiple point systems. That's just my way of thinking about things. So if you're using the Blue Business Plus and you want to accrue them as many MR points you want through spending, I would say something like the Amex Gold. It's not in the annual fee range that you're saying, but I think that would be something I would think about. The Amex Green is also another option. Again, not in the annual fee range, but that's the problem with the American Express is that their annual fees are really high. And so you can't really find a good card in that range to do that if you want to really maximize those transferable points. I would say that if there was any card that I would go outside, I would say it'd be probably the City Premier card that does fit the $95 annual fee. That gets you a lot of options, specifically the groceries. They have gas too, or they don't have gas? I forgot.
Yeah, gas, dining, gas,
They,
and groceries.
they have those
Hotels and airfare.
that trifecta of like, the most popular spending categories. So I would just use that to capture the most popular spending categories and then use the Blue Business Plus for everything else. That's what I would do.
If his question is for any American Express card, I don't think there is one. I don't think you can get an MR earning card for $100 or less, and that would lead me to say, hey man, that Blue Business Plus might just be your one-off business card, and you need to look at, if you're looking for $0 to $100, maybe you should get into the Wells Fargo or the Citi ecosystem. You could also do Chase just fine for $95. But I don't think American Express is your partner in a strategy with low annual fees. They're all high annual fees. Even the green card is 50% more than your top end spend there. So American Express is great and they're cool, and the Blue Business Plus is a great card. But I don't think with what you're looking for, American Express is going to be your partner in building that setup.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, MX is just Their annual fees are getting higher. It's just one of those things where you got to pay to play. All right. So we have one more question here from user. User asked, if I have a Chase Inc. cash card and he's about to dissolve the business he opened it for, does he have to close the card before he dissolves the business? He's not sure when he has to register a new business and doesn't have any major upcoming expenses to get the sign-up bonus, so he doesn't plan to open up a new Chase Inc. card. And I actually don't know the answer to this question because I've never been in this situation before myself. I would imagine that your card would still be active over the next year or so, calendar year, but I don't know what happens really after that. I don't know if you've been in this situation before, Luke, or not.
I've not been in the situation, but that might be something where I just secure message Chase and let them know, hey, I'm dissolving this business. What are some options that I have for this card? And you might get somebody that says, keep it until you have a new business, or they might say, okay, well, if the business is dissolving, we have to cancel the card, which doesn't hurt you in any way, especially if you're not using it all the time. But I would secure message Chase and just give them just ask them, because like Stan says, I'm not sure. I'm really not sure.
Yeah. Solid. I think that's great. Just ask and they'll let you know what to do. So I think we're into our final section, which is underrated, overrated. So long awaited. Right now, before we get started, we do have 210 of you in the chat. So definitely hit that like button if you're getting value. Definitely want to make sure that we give you the most value as possible, but I'm glad you're all here joining us. And so thank you so much for all of your support. And, again, we're going to get into this really fun section at this point called underrated, overrated. I know that on your community post, Luke, someone said, who's the moderator? And maybe in the future, we should get a moderator to moderate these debates, because I think that'd be a very unique thing to do.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know how much I love polls, so I want to get you guys into this first, okay? So we're going to have some polls throughout this whole section to see kind of how you guys think of these things, underrated or overrated. And so I want you first to kind of get connected to this. As you all know, you can go to menti.com and enter the code on the screen there, or you can scan the QR code on the screen if you want to do so to get to the question. I'm going to kind of get you all popped in first. This is all anonymous voting, so no hard feelings. And this is going to be the first question. And the question actually is going to be, do you like pineapple on pizza? Underrated, overrated? Let me just go ahead and put on the bottom here the number, because I took that off quickly. So I got to put that in my phone myself. So I'm joined in. And if you can, just go ahead and click the like button so I know that you're actually in the voting. That would be awesome. And so I'm going to click that like button there, make sure that people are in. I know, Luke, also, when you had your little bachelor day, when your wife and your son were traveling, you were getting a pizza too at the door. What pizza you end up getting?
I kind of do trends. Right now I'm doing sausage and banana peppers, but even last week, because we usually do pizza on Friday. Pizza on last Friday was sausage, green peppers, and onions. But I'm a fan of pineapple on pizza. 100%.
Right.
Pineapple. I would do pineapple, ham, and almonds.
Okay, so we know you're a fan of it. That's great. I am also a fan of pineapple on pizza, so I think it's definitely underrated. Not to spoil the vote or anything, but here we go. We're gonna go ahead and vote. So you can go ahead and just click on your phone if you think it's underrated or overrated with pineapple on pizza. And so let's see what we got going on. We have a pretty even split of 4-5. Some people think it's more overrated. People seem to not like pineapple on pizza. So I think we are definitely in the minority here, Luke, unfortunately. My preferred pizza is actually pepperoni and sausage.
Yeah.
I don't like vegetables on my pizza, but don't tell that to my wife. I love the just meat, cheese, and just like those sorts of things. Sometimes a little Canadian bacon on the top, but for simplicity, just Italian sausage and pepperoni. That's the way I go.
100%.
So it looks like we're about 2/3 of people who don't like pineapple.
Yeah, I didn't think it would be this popular.
Yeah, well, I guess some people just don't like pineapple on their pizza. I think Rodrigo is telling us that it's underrated for sure. So, maybe we have some other people who are voicing their concerns about pineapple on pizza, but I don't know. We're just probably
they call it Hawaiian pizza, right? It's like a Hawaiian style.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't love Hawaii?
All right. So we'll kind of stop the voting around there. So it's about half and half, a little more for overrated. I just did that so we can get you locked into the polling. So now that when we do future polling, you'll just have to enter that code in again or anything. So I'm going to go ahead and shut this off here, go on to our first underrated, overrated question. And that's going to be, oh, here we go. Hold on before I do this. Juan Mamek says pineapple on pizza is the correct one of pizzas. Oh, no. Or you could say Hawaiian pizza, you can call it Alaskan pizza now. I like that. That's
There you
good.
go. Yeah,
Oh, bravo, Rodrigo. That was clever. I love that.
good comeback.
Okay. So let's go ahead and add this to stage again. So the first underrated overrated is going to be submitted by our viewers on the community tab. And he asked points versus cash back. And so is that underrated or overrated? I guess would say we'll make it is are points underrated or overrated? Luke, what do you think?
Well, I would have a different answer for you a month ago. And let me explain why I say that. I do a lot of videos about redemptions and cents per point and different things like that. And something that I've kind of learned, maybe I'm a slow learner, but I'm just now learning that I don't think a large part of our community dives really deep in these transfer programs and books international business class through partners. I don't think that a very large percentage of this community is taking full advantage of these points. I think a majority of them are, they're getting American Airlines miles and booking a flight, or they're going through a travel portal and booking a flight. I was ignorant to the fact that a lot of people are not doing that. So I would think it could be both, right? You could, if you are elbow deep in the game and you're booking, Austrian Airlines through Avianca and you get a 10% bonus because you have the credit card, then it's underrated. Points are awesome. Points are really good. If you fly to grandma's house twice a year and you're just using the city portal, they might be overrated compared to a cashback. So I think it depends on what you do. And I was really overestimating the amount of people that were doing the things I like to do. And I think for a lot of folks, points could be very overrated.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they could do better with a cashback setup.
Yeah, I'm definitely on the side of overrated. Now, of course, I want to just take a step back and say that a lot of you here in this live stream, including Uncle Luke, are very talented and know how to book these points in the right way. You take one airline, book through another airline using another airline's points when you transfer it with a bonus, and then you use a credit card to take that bonus to another bonus. That's how you're supposed to do it. There's all these like stacking on stacking and stacking of benefits. But like you always say, you got to put on your hard hat and you go to work. Right. And so
Yeah.
a lot of people like myself don't have the ability or time or energy to do that, or I don't love it as much as you guys do. And so when I look at points, would I like to get the best cents per point value possible? Of course I would, but like, I don't know if it's worth it for me to do that work. And I think a lot of you fall under the same umbrella as what I am, is where simplicity is kind of the balance. You understand points to a point where you get not like a crappy redemption, but you get a redemption that's somewhat okay and good enough for you to really enjoy it to the level that you can. But I think it's overrated in the sense that a lot of people could do a lot better with cashback. Can have a lot better time with it, take a lot less time with it, and just get that raw value right up front and use that cashback to do something positive, like book a trip or whatever. That's totally fine too. It's nothing wrong with that. And so I think it's just you and I are kind of on two sides of the page. Not saying that we're like completely separate or different. It's just that I think our views on this can be, they're not as like, congruous. But you also said that, yeah, it depends on the situation as well.
Just to piggyback off what you said, the way we think is also different. I heard you say it was recently that and if it wasn't you, then I'm just going crazy. But I think you said something to the effect of, you have to make your point system fit the redemption you want, instead of having my style is the complete opposite. I don't do that. I don't care where that destination is, in a sense to where as long as it's the same continent I'm looking at, like I will look for a crazy deal. And let's say I wanted to go to Cartagena, Colombia, and the best deal is in Aruba. I'm going to Aruba. You know, and there's nothing wrong with that either way. It's just I have so many destinations on the list that it doesn't matter in which order I click them, as long as I'm getting the biggest bang for my buck. And also, I think part of that is I have to really be a good steward of my resources more so than some people, because I am buying 3 or 4 seats, and I am like I have to make sure that this is, like you said, when we put our hard hat and go to work, I have to make sure this is worth my time. You know, if I'm getting lower value, and just like David Williams says in the chat, 5% versus 3 times, that's not clear cut for everyone. If you're going through the Chase Travel Portal, what's 3 times? 3.75%, and 5% is always going to be greater than less than 4%. But we see that 3 times in travel points is so much better. And then, like what Wong Wei says, you can get crazy value from travel points, but I guarantee you're spending a ton of money on that trip, you know, just all together. So I think the points versus cash back, I think it's going to be different for everybody, and it might be different every single time.
Absolutely. No, I totally agree with that. And again, we do have different ways of thinking about it. Like the reason why I said that I want to fit to the destination is because, you know, my traveling is less of a world travel like yourself. It's more of I want to go to this place
Right.
specifically, right? And that's just a style of travel. It's nothing wrong or right about it. It's just that that's kind of what I would like to do. Maybe one day I'd like to expand my horizons and see other places too, based on the award redemption availability. But it depends on kind of what you want to do. But it's nice because you and your family get to experience a lot of different cultures, a lot of different places, and I think that's really just priceless in general, whether you use points or not. So I think that's going to cover that one. The next one was a debate on credit card churning. And so basically, I don't know if this is an overrated, underrated situation, but I don't know how you feel about that type of credit card play, but my views on that are pretty much I don't think it's great. I know it is a strategy people can use to get a lot of points by just getting a bunch of welcome offers a bunch of times, but I think it eventually comes back to get you. I don't know if you have that same thought or not.
Well, we have to define churning, because I think people have a different idea what that is. Way back in the day, credit card churning was before there were rules against it. Because when I first looked into this game, churning meant you get a Chase Sapphire Preferred, and 2 months later, when you get the bonus, you close that card. A month later, you open it again. So people were getting the Chase Sapphire Preferred sometimes 3 times in a year. There weren't the calendar rules and you didn't have to wait. And in that sense, yeah, you're opening up accounts and having a super short, length of credit history. That was detrimental to credit scores, but they were just really churning a lot of points. I think the more modern day version of churning is when we say, I just got the card for the bonus. And I think that, again, is going to be different for different people. I'm an old man. Getting a card for a year and closing it won't hurt my credit. If I'm 21 years old, that might have a different impact on me, and it might not be the best idea. That person might want to focus on cards that make sense long term. But for me, I can get away with it a little more. But I agree with what you said. In an overview sense, it's not the best thing to continuously doing, because I don't care what anybody says. A large percentage of us overspend at least slightly when we're going for a bonus. And if you want to really churn, you might be trying to hit 2 or 3 bonuses at the same time. And I can tell you 100%, I'm a victim of, I will spend money that I may not have otherwise to hit that bonus. And it's something that I can accept, and I have money, so it doesn't matter that much. But 100%, when I'm getting sign-up bonuses, I'm spending more money on things I may not have spent on before. So,
and I'm also a victim of that too. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I think we don't look at that as often, especially like you said, if you're doing 2 or 3 at a time, which does happen in that churning world. Yes, you can really start to overspend and not even realize it. And I like how you point out how, when you're younger, it can really be detrimental to your credit score just overall by opening and closing a bunch of cards in rapid succession.
Mm-hmm.
I think for you and me, I mean, you're older than I am, but I'm also kind of the older category too, a little bit. I don't know if I beat that, but we're in the era where our credit scores are more mature, right? We
Mm-hmm.
have 10, 20 years under our belts with that already. So doing that like once or twice is not going to really put a dent in our credit report at all, just because we did that once or twice. Now, if I did that like 20 times in 1 year, I think that would be a problem. But I think one of the things I want to mention about credit card churning is that eventually it will catch up to you, because eventually you'll get to a point where you have so many hard pulls on your credit report, so many new accounts, that people will just start, or banks will start not accepting credit cards just when you apply for them, just because of the fact you're going too fast.
Sure.
And so when the new card comes out, like for example, the US Bank Smartly card or whatever other new card comes out that you may want to get, you are no longer able to get it for quite some time because you have been too greedy and trying to get as much as possible, which is why I always say, let's have a core setup that you use for spending on the popular categories that you typically have. I think if you have that, you always have a fallback, even when you're not doing a welcome offer. And a lot of us here, there's always going to be a point where you're not working on a welcome offer. A lot of people try to just do welcome offer, welcome offer, welcome offer. It just depends on the person if they want to do that or not. But I would say that I would rather have a core setup than not, and just not depend on having new cards to really front that highest like cashback value or point value I get from the welcome offer.
And like you said, I think if you're a much lower spender, then obviously the sign up bonus is exponentially bigger deal for you. But if you're older and you've gotten the bonuses, your main setup generates quite a few points. And I just had a brain fart and kind of just blanked out. Yeah, so I think, yeah, go ahead.
That's fine.
It happens.
Well,
Hey, it's gonna be an old.
that's part of it. One Meowmix says, churn at your discretion. I agree. Rodrigo Rivas says, if your spending allows it, go for it. I just feel that people will overspend just to get the welcome offer. I'll just say it this way. The reason why we have all these rules is because people tried to go too fast.
Yeah.
If we didn't have people trying to overextend and do that and make it worse, like we wouldn't have any of these problems. We wouldn't have Chase 524. We wouldn't have any of these like rules that are going on. It's just because when we have nice things and people take advantage of those nice things, we can no longer have nice things. And so that's kind of the idea that I kind of follow by. That's just me. Take that for what you will. Kevin Wynn says it is not a good thing for me to do as an 18-year-old. Yeah, you definitely do not want to be doing that at 18 years old. Get one card, hold it for at least 1 year, and then go to something else like a Chase or something. Just be cool. You've got your whole life ahead of you. Invest, invest early and often, because even that small amount of money will grow to a large amount of money if you invest that correctly. So that's kind of what I would say is more important than the credit card game in general, is saving money and investing that money correctly, as opposed to trying to get this like 5% cash back on whatever that we're spending on. David Williams says, churn respectfully. I agree with that.
That's a good way to put it.
I like that. That's a good theme to have. Churning isn't for custard. I don't know what custards are, but churning isn't for custards.
Like it's like a pudding.
Oh, there we go. Oh, that's right. Okay. So next one is Paul. He actually called it because we had 3 predetermined topics we want to cover. And he said, US Bank Altru Reserve, overrated or underrated. And so that's the next topic that we're going to talk about. And that's the big one of everyone's mind because of this rumor situation that may or may not be discontinued in the next week or so. But we all know kind of what my stance is on the US Bank Altru Reserve. I think it's absolutely an underrated card because it's so good and you can really get a lot of value from it for the most simplest way possible. So that's what my stance is. And I know, Luke, that you have said in your lives and in your videos that I don't know what the big deal is. I think it's not as good as people say it is, which is funny because, we're good friends, but we still have these different ideas and different things about the way we think about credit cards. So I want to hear your argument about why you think that the US Bank Altitude Reserve is overrated.
Okay, why is it overrated? Okay, so first off, it's not a bad card. It's a great card. It's reached this legend level of status and at the same time, it's maintained its underdog status. Every day I look at YouTube, it's why does no one talk about the USBAR, when in fact, everyone is talking about the USBAR. Now, you were the first to do it, and you've been talking about it for quite a while, but it's a cash back card that you're not really getting cash back. Am I right? Or
You're getting points, but the points are essentially cash back because when you
for
redeem them
some things.
for some
Well,
things, that's correct.
okay, so here's my thing. It's $400, and there's not really a way to break even on that without really doing some mental gymnastics. So you're paying $75 a year for a cash back card that you don't really get cash back. You can make certain purchases, and then let me see if I can. It's so simple. I don't know how it works. They text you
Sure.
something, and then you text them back, and then you can redeem with a bonus only for travel purchases. Is that about the
That's about right. Yep.
okay? So, and you have to use a mobile wallet, which everybody claims they use mobile wallet for everything. I'm not disputing how they spend their money, but in my life, the only thing that I can consistently pay with a mobile wallet is the gas station and the grocery store. So I can do better than 4.5% redemption on some things for both those categories. And the next thing I hear is, well, it's just so convenient. It's all on my mobile wallet. Do you guys have credit cards that don't go on your mobile wallet? Like every single credit card I have is on that same mobile wallet that I do the same. I put it close to the thing, and I click it twice on the side. And so I'm not saying it's a bad card, but I just cannot for the life of me understand at all how this 4.5% back just on travel, just on mobile wallet can compete with any number of 5% cash back cards that give me US dollars. And
I can see that.
add the annual fee, add that it's wearing a travel card mask, and it does have it does have the infinite protections. It has, primary rental car insurance. I would never say it's a bad card. It's great, but it's sort of like a very restrictive cashback card in a travel card costume.
I think that's a great way to put it. I would just say that it's one of those cards where you can do all those things, but it's just in one card, right? And so I think that is one of its claim to fame, is that it makes it simple. I do want to point this out real quick. The USBAR is more of a lifestyle card than for those that can use mobile wallet. But also, QC Man says Dugras was the first, which he was. I think him and this guy called Derek Hassan's Travel or something. Like, he was the
before
first
that,
to do it.
Dustin Waller used it.
Yeah, so I wasn't the first, but I was, I think the first in the modern times to talk about it.
I think you are responsible for this faux underdog branding.
I can see that. I can certainly see that. But I want to go back to the US Bank Altitude Reserve and why I think it's such an underrated card, even with what you said. So you mentioned that it was a lot of work because you had to think about a lot of things because it has that $75 annual fee. Well, first of all, it has that $400 annual fee, but the credit on it is basically you don't even have to think about it. That's actually the one nice thing about this card, is that even when you use it, the travel and dining, you can definitely spend that amount of money in a year to get that credit. So like you said, $75 annual fee, it's pretty good from that perspective. But you really get to do all the mobile wallet spending on it. And for me, who lives in the Southern California area, my area, everything accepts mobile wallet. There's almost no place that I can think of other than Walmart that can't accept mobile wallet. That's because Walmart's being really annoying with their Walmart Pay situation. If they would just let that go, then it would be everywhere that I spend money accepts mobile wallet. The only two places are basically sit-down restaurants and online shopping to some degree. It may be different in rural Ohio, so I totally get that. It's more of an environment thing.
Well, no, it's the same. That's about, but I guess with what my role is in my household, I don't know if I'm paying for anything besides sit-down restaurants and online. I mean, that's about the only thing I don't spend most of my money, but gas stations, sit-down restaurants, and online is probably the only three places I ever spend money.
Well, if you don't spend your money, who does?
My wife.
My wife. So your wife has other spending, and my wife also spends the money too. And so what's nice about the USBAR also is that it is a really simple way to give someone who may not be as versed in the credit card game as ourselves a simple version of how to do something, right? And so it's like, you have to like sometimes give them like the Chase trifecta, and they have to be okay, use the Sapphire Preferred for dining, use the Unlimited for like everything else, and the Freedom Flex is gonna change every 3 months, so you gotta like do all this stuff. Instead of doing that, you can just give them one card with this really great multiplier that you know how to use, and basically they can just use that on their mobile wallet and do all of their transactions on it. And it's a very simple way to do things. And I think not only for yourself, but also for your spouse or your player two or whatever. I think that's a really great thing about the Ultra Reserve and makes it a really great underrated card because not there's not a lot of cards out there that can do all of the type of categories for it at 4.5% in just one card. 5% is better. Absolutely. No questions there. But you got to use like 3 or 4 cards, and that may not be something that people want to do. Maybe you and I are okay with that, but maybe, your player two, spouse, partner, whatever, they are just like overwhelmed by it. And so this is one way to kind of get them into the game too and get that nice multiplier. We also mentioned the real-time rewards, by the way. Is it annoying? Yes. I will agree that it's not pure cashback.
I
Right?
still don't understand it.
The pure cashback is when you put money into a checking account. That's what really pure cashback is. It doesn't do that, but it does do that, but just not at a 1.5 cent per point situation. So you have to do a little bit extra work to get the 1.5 out of it. But the extra work is typing REDEEM send on your phone. Like that's all you have to do. And for those of us who are, that text, which is basically everybody, that's like not that hard to do. Right. And so it's a nice way to kind of, if you found a way to redeem it in a way that you travel, like for example, for me, I use Ubers a lot, and that's the way I primarily redeem my points, then that's great. You just have to find whatever it is that you want to redeem for. And then it's pretty easy. You just type in the text and you're done. That's what I think about this card. It's just simple. It's simple, and it's more simple than any other card on the market and gets you a really good percent multiplier back for very little work, in my opinion.
This might be a dumb question, but can you use mobile wallet for Uber?
Sorry, what was that?
Can you use mobile wallet for Uber?
I don't know if you can. I think you can, but Uber does also qualify for the 3x travel category, which is why it still works.
Okay. It's just here's like when I think about it, it's not absolutely not a bad card. No, there's no way anybody could argue it's a bad card. But if you're willing to pay $400 for a card that's disguised itself as a travel card, the Chase Sapphire Reserve gives you just an overwhelmingly more different benefits as far as travel. It completely changes your travel experience. It does give you that 50% bonus with travel stuff in the portal, and it doesn't earn a whole lot less on everyday items. It's kind of like I don't follow baseball, but I read this and it made a lot of sense. They kept writing articles about the scrappy young New York Mets team. How these underdogs were defying the odds, and the New York Mets team had $308 million payroll. So they weren't underdogs. They painted this picture as and people really ate it up. I see the USBAR Reserve as a person who doesn't know if they want to be in the cash bet game or the travel game, but they just want to get some of their trips to grandma's house paid for.
Yeah.
And to me, that's awesome. And math-wise, it might make a lot of sense, but it does not knock Aunt Connie's socks off. Paying for your Ubers doesn't get me charged up. And here's the thing: we haven't even brought up that they don't have travel transfer partners. I mean, the number one way to get exponential value and to experience things a lot of normal people will never experience in their life. The only way to do that is through the transfer partners. And this doesn't offer that.
Yeah. No, that's true. Transfer partners is a big thing. And so that is one of the big downsides of this card that I'll totally agree with is that, US Bank and Bank of America are just plagued with not having any of those transfer partner abilities. And so that just makes them just lower on the totem pole when it comes to these credit card, rewards and things like that. Real quick though, we have Josh Inglis says you can use Apple Pay for Uber. So does Guna Driver says that as well. You can absolutely do that. QCM actually wants us to settle this argument in the UFC ring. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. I probably wouldn't fare too well, but if I oiled myself up and be really slippery, maybe I could get away with it.
I'm 47 years old, and I last fought, I don't know if I was 29 or 30, and I'm not doing it again. Like it's not fun like it was.
Yeah. Interesting story. I used to do wrestling in high school. It's a very little known fact about me. Yeah. I was terrible at it, but I did it.
Yeah. Being terrible, a terrible wrestler can probably out wrestle somebody who doesn't wrestle. So
that's fair. No, fair enough. Okay. Christopher also says something interesting. USBAR can be cashback if you purchase refundable plane tickets and use points to cover the cost, then refund the plane ticket, and boom, that's cashback. And they're right. It's a statement credit. It's one of those things where like, it's best, but
I'm not a judgy person, so I don't judge anybody that does that. But I like a mutually beneficial relationship with my banks. I don't give the banks anything. They don't deserve anything from me, but that's not in keeping with the spirit of how the card's supposed to be used. So that's most likely not something I would do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but you can't.
You're right.
Yeah. JP Knowledge comes out, says the card doesn't compete against a multi-card cashback setup like you were talking about, but it does beat the CSR for most people. Since most people with CSR use it for all their purchases, then redeem it in the portal. And that's very true, actually. A lot of people with the CSR that are not in this community will just use it for everything. And then you're getting that 1x, not like the 3 or the 2, or sorry, the 3 or the 3. So you're just getting some 1x in there, and that will kind of devalue the points and the spending that you're doing.
But I think that's a lot closer than a complete blowout. I think even if you're just using the CSR and you're just going through the portal, I think that math is going to be a lot more even than we think.
Yeah. Well, JP also follows up and says if you use partners, the CSR wins, but most people use the portal over transfer partners. So for most people, the US bar wins, but for advanced players, the CSR is better. I can get behind that.
Well, let's compromise and let's dumb it down to the complete lowest common denominator and say you use your CSR points for high-end hotels.
There it is.
And
you get a really good value for that.
You never pay for a hotel the rest of your life, and your value is going to probably exceed the US bar by a lot.
Absolutely. Okay. So now you heard from myself, some people in the chat, as well as Luke, but now I'm going to turn over to you guys. And I want to know actually if you guys feel that the US Bank Outdoor Reserve, is that underrated or overrated? And so again, that was the QR code. This is the ticker if you just joined in. If you go to menti.com and enter the 8-digit code, we can see what you guys think about having it being underrated or overrated. Go ahead and press the like button on the screen while I get everything set up. And we're going to go ahead and start the polling right about now. So do you think that the US Bank Outdoor Reserve is underrated, or do you think is it overrated? I'm going to submit my vote here. We'll see how this is like, because I know a lot of people that watch my channel love this card just like me.
It's really popular and it's a good card, but the fact that it is so popular, it almost disqualifies it from being underrated, because it's not underrated. It's evenly rated, if anything.
I guess you could say maybe earlier on, a couple years ago, it could be underrated because it wasn't as well known yet.
100%.
But now that it's more popular, I can see what you're saying now is that, it could be, considered to be equal rated. So it's just a standard card. So you can't really say, but it's still a common debate, just like we're having now. So there's certainly differences in opinion.
And I think that card is going to really appeal to the folks I spoke about earlier that are not going to get deep in this game to where they're, booking Singapore Airlines to fly to Frankfurt, Germany on Aeroplan. They're not going to do that. So the US bar is something that they're very much comfortable with and can easily navigate through.
Yeah. Well, it looks like it's about even, with underrated being a little bit more than the overrated section. So we're going to call this an underrated win. So we're going to say the US Bank Outdoor Reserve is underrated, although it is fairly close. So thanks for sitting with that. And I'm going to go ahead and go back to the poll here and put this back up.
But that's the beauty of this. It's the beauty of this game. What works for some people it doesn't matter if it's overrated or underrated. If it works and it, like I said, it's a good card, it gets value. So if you're using the US bar, you are probably getting value and doing well. So
Mhm. Absolutely. It's again, this is all in good fun, and it really does depend on you, the individual, which is why it's so cool to hear from different perspectives, so we can get a good idea of what's going on.
I just want to see the video where someone says, I just booked Emirates first class with the US bar. And I don't think I'm ever going to see that video.
It's not going to happen. No, you're absolutely right. Okay, topic number 2 is Chase 524 underrated or overrated? Now, it's kind of a weird thing to say because we all dislike Chase 524, but I think what the point I'm trying to make is that is Chase 524 good or is it bad, right? Is it something that we really shouldn't have to worry about, or should we actually think about? Like, I'm on the fence that you should respect 524 because it can open up a lot of opportunities for chase cards. But I know, Luke, in your lives and your videos, you've talked about you should just risk it for the biscuit and apply for the cards you want. And so let's open up with that. So why would you think that this Chase 524 rule is pretty much overrated?
Well, here's the thing. And this goes back to what I've been talking about. For a lot of people that are portal puppies or portal people, you have to really respect that 524 because that's the only way you're going to get, you know, high-ish value is through these chase cards. You and chase cards have value for everyone. Don't get me wrong. But if you are someone who wants to, you want to do that New York, Newark and New Jersey to Athens, Greece in the summertime on Emirates business class, you don't need Chase to do that. You can get bonuses from 3 or 4 different ecosystems, and you can get that redemption now. And there's going to be an argument for, hey, let's pace ourselves. Let's think long term. Let's have a plan. I think there's so many options out there. You don't really need to do that. If you just follow the basic rule when you get into this game and says, hey, there is a Chase 524 rule. So maybe your first few cards should be a common chase setup. After that, you could blow the doors off 524. And guess what, guys? When you get my age, 24 months isn't a super long time. You're already waiting to get bonuses again from certain cards. If you got a couple chase cards and then you blew through that and you went to Capital One, you went to Citi, and then American Express, you're going to have exponentially more points to travel than if you pitter-patted around and stayed under 524 and, oh, I don't want to have high velocity. And that just depends on how many points you want to blow through. I don't see a big deal of, and then you have the X factor in this whole game that it seems like it's getting a little bit controversial now. But let's say I do get a couple of chase cards and then I blow through my 524 and I'm 1524. I'm just going to get business cards for the next 24 months. My velocity is not even going to change. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are saying now, well, not everybody should do that. And here's the thing. There's a huge confusion right now between the IRS, taxes, and how people use business cards. I can use a business card for anything, and the IRS does not care how I paid for that. Like if I'm expensing something, that's the IRS's business. If I'm using a certain credit card, the IRS does not care what credit card I use for that purchase. Now, I'm not saying go against your terms and conditions from your issuer, but there's a lot of confusion on what you can and can't do with business cards. And I think that's the X factor in kind of minimizing Chase 524. Is there a case to stay under 524 or be cognizant if I need a new Chase card? Well, here's a great example. If that premium Chase business card comes out really soon, I can't get it because I'm over 524. And I will have lost out getting the initial high bonus. So there's an argument to keep in mind your Chase 524 status, but I think it's extremely overrated. Last time I checked, there is not a 250,000 MR point bonus on any Chase cards.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of good points, and me trying to defend Chase 524 is hard because I don't really like it either. But I will say that the last point that you make is kind of the main argument that I have, is that there are a lot of good chase cards with really good welcome offers that come up. May not be as good as the business card 250, 300K offer on the business platinum, but you've seen all those ink cards come up. And while you may or may not be able to beat 524 with those cards, you're at a much better advantage if you're able to be under 524 when you apply for those ink cards with those really nice welcome offer bonuses. And so if you keep yourself in a way where you're under 524 and you're making sure that you're being strategic in how you apply for your cards, you will never miss out on like a random ink preferred 120K offer or a random
Yeah.
ink cash like 90K offer. I think there's some value to that. Now, if Chase had like really ridiculously crappy welcome offers, then that's fine. You're just like, get the cards that you want and then just leave, right? But I think they do that on purpose, that the welcome offers are still really good because they want you to kind of keep them in mind. You know, they're really good at that, like we talked about before. The marketing card is great because you are always thinking about a Chase card when applying for any card because of this Chase 524 rule. So they're always top of mind. But I think there is some value to making sure that you think about 524 because of those specific reasons. Now, should you not go over 524 in certain situations when there's a card that is really good and you want to get that's outside the ecosystem of Chase, then I think you should go for it. I think that's fine. But because it's a rule we have to abide by, I think you have to respect it as a part of what we do. And if you're okay with just foregoing that new Chase card, luxury Chase card, or that random ink preferred bonus or ink cash bonus, then I think as long as you made that informed decision for yourself, then that's okay. But I would just say that those bonuses are very hard to not have, right, available to you. I think that there are other cards that are good, but you can't discount those other welcome offers and have them not as available as a part of your arsenal of trying to get those cards for those welcome offers.
Yeah, and then to just throw a monkey wrench in the whole thing, I got 7 Chase cards in 6 months while being over 524.
Okay, well there is. See, like, you're lucky because you get to just do that, and I personally, you love risking it for the biscuit. I'm more like conservative where I just don't. I get worried about that because one of my fears that really shouldn't be a fear because it's not really a big of a deal is if you apply for a card, get a hard pull, and you get nothing out of it, you get denied for a card. That so far has never happened to me. I've clearly been denied multiple times, but through recon and other things, I've eventually been able to argue my way through to get the card. But, for me, I just try to keep my hard pulls to a minimum just because, certain things like I don't have a house yet. Like you have a house. I don't have one yet. So I want to make sure that I keep that a little bit lower. Not that it should be like a reason because my credit score is still pretty high, but I think it's still something I think about. A lot of people that are buying the first home or getting that age, I think that is something to think about as well. And that 524 keeps things under wraps. Like, where's this comment I just saw? Maybe a little while ago. Yeah, Yuri says here was times when there was no 524 and it was a blast. I'm sure it was an absolute blast because can you imagine if you had no reason to like stop applying for cards?
Well, like I said, you
right?
used to be able to apply for a Chase card, and as soon as you got the bonus, you could cancel the card and apply again the next day and get another bonus.
Yeah, insane, right?
It was the Wild West.
And so that kind of lifestyle has changed now. And so now that we are in this new era, we have to really respect the rules that come up when we talk about this Chase 524 rule. So there's that. Don Kim actually has a really nice comment saying having a player 2 is the best strategy to counter 524, which is absolutely true because you have another report to like deal with. Unfortunately, I split my player 2 into turning into an Aunt Connie.
Oh, boy. That's your problem,
That's
Don.
really funny. You gotta watch out for that. Platinum OG, this is funny because he's a Platinum OG. He says ink preferred twice is better than the business Platinum. Maybe. It's 120K times 2 if you got it twice, and then 250K biz Platinum. It's arguable, but it depends on kind of what you use your points for, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. It's hard to say that 2 cards are better than 1, but yeah, I get it. I mean, that's the beauty of where we are in the game right now. We have a lot of really healthy competition. I just got it's the most random thing. I just got the Wells Fargo Business Signify card. Like, and it's all it was a 60-point transferable currency injection into my cash. It's just like we have so many options now, especially on the business side, that these questions are great to go over, but man, you can do it. You can do it a million different ways and still kill it.
Absolutely. That's for sure. Okay, so you've heard from me and Luke about the 524 being underrated or overrated. Basically, do you like it or you dislike it? So if you like it, it's underrated. If you don't like it, it's overrated. Let's go ahead and do the polling again. So here we go. We're going to go to menti.com and enter the code there if you've just joined us recently. And we're going to go ahead and get the polling started about that particular topic. Let me just go ahead and pull that up here. All right. So again, is Chase 524 underrated or overrated? Again, if you like it, it's underrated. If it's overrated, you don't like it. I think it's going to be kind of a landslide, but we're just going to go ahead and do it. So here we go. On the count of three, 1, 2, 3, and here we go. So go ahead into your polls here and see if you think it's underrated or overrated. I will go ahead and submit my vote here. It's actually surprisingly more even than I thought it was until that happened. Now it's much more overrated than underrated. So again, overrated means you dislike it. Underrated, you think there's a role for it and you can see how it can make you be more strategic with the way you submit your applications. What was the term before? It was respectful churning, right? That's what we called it.
I think nowadays, I think so many people are, what do we just get? People are really optimistic about some of the stuff City's going to provide. The Capital One Venture X, I think, really factored into 524 because folks are really digging the Venture X. So I think the competition is hopefully it forces Chase to level up. We just complained earlier that there's no gas and groceries. Every week, most American families or individuals are buying gas and groceries. But throw EV into gas. It's whatever, whatever you're doing. But I think Chase has become like the fat cat that's a little bit spoiled, and they don't think they have to provide all that, and they don't. So
right. Well, we have some comments here. It says, where am I here? Like disappeared. So 524 is basically overrated. People don't like it. Ben E says he hates it, but it's a safeguard. So you're probably on the side of the underrated. I agree with that. I think the safety net, or not safety net, the safeguard, kind of the strategery in it makes it good. But then just another guy says, let people regulate themselves. And so I can see that argument too. So there's that. So I will go ahead and call that a win for the overrated side. Definitely an overrated, rule, and people would just rather it not be there. And that is absolutely understandable because, to be quite honest, that's the way I feel too. So there's that. Let's go ahead and put this back onto here. And we have one more topic, and it's the one about business class flights. And so I know this has been new for you, Luke. You have promised your family that you will never, ever take economy plus on a long haul flight again. Not never. Okay. All right. Well, that's what I thought, but you will try to always get business class flights if you can. So I'm on the fence that economy is okay and you can live with it, but you're on the fence that business classes flights are better. So I think business classes flights are overrated and you think they're underrated. Before we get started though, do you know what screenshot I took from which website? You may or may not know this. I think you probably should.
It's at Qatar?
Yeah, absolutely. That's Qatar Airways. I try to find the Q Suites picture from their website. This is the best I could find.
Yeah.
I personally have not been in Q Suites before, so I don't even know what it looks like. But it's
underrated.
Yeah, I will even agree that it is underrated. That's for dang sure. But let's go ahead and get started here. So why do you think you want your family to travel for the most part in business class?
Okay. So let me, I don't want to blab on too long, but let me preface this with, I didn't fly as a kid. My first flight was a continental flight to boot camp. So that's how I grew up. Didn't do vacations, didn't fly, didn't know this kind of stuff existed. So the international or long haul business class flights for me, they're kind of characterized in a couple different ways. One, I think it's the pinnacle of playing this game. I cannot afford to fly to Belgium in a lie flat seat and drink champagne. It's not something I would ever spend money on, but I can do it almost easily in this game. through financial responsibility by paying my credit cards off on time and learning these programs and not exploiting them, but taking advantage of the benefits. And that's just, and I think that is where a lot of this comes from. Very humble beginnings. These are things that I would never be able to do or experience if not for this credit card game. The second thing is the practical things. Cattle class sucks. If and even just in my particular case, I don't do super well in crowds. I'm not a super social person. The level of what I have to put myself through to get on a 777 with 300 other people in tight quarters is not pleasant at all. Just from just by personality. So that's stressful. Traveling in general is stressful when you're not by yourself. When you're with a family, my son is the best traveler in the world. Is it still stressful taking him with me? Yes, it is. There's security issues. There's comfort issues. There's you want to keep him comfortable. You want to keep him fed. Keep the weirdos away from him. You're worried about giving everybody a really good experience because traveling is stressful. So to change that stressful experience into, hey, I'm looking forward to see what these seats look like. I'm looking forward to see what kind of food they have because it's a much, much different experience. My biggest thing has always been like this. There's two thought patterns to when we're getting ready to leave on vacation. One is, Stan, it's an 8-hour flight. It's an 8-hour flight in economy, and I'm probably going to be next to some Adam's kids, and it's going to be, I can't sleep because I have sleep apnea, and I'm going to be cramped, and I have to get up and move around. I'm so dreading it. I'm just going to stay up all night thinking about it because it sucks so bad. Or I can say, man, I can't wait to see what this Swiss Air lie flat throne seat looks like. I can't wait to see if they have, if high-end champagne actually tastes different than this garbage stuff I've had before. I wonder what, and they even sent me an email saying I could pick a certain meal from the chef. So I'm going to have this gourmet burger. Now I'm looking forward to this part of the travel. And is it worth that much more money? That's a different question. This question is it underrated or overrated? And in this points game, I know how to earn points to be able to do that to where it doesn't hurt me or cost me like it would if it was cash. So, and it's also part of the hobby. I have a weird thing where I want to fly Spain's airline. I want to fly Iberia. I want to fly Austria's. I want to fly Singapore. Like all these kind of representations of different countries. I want to see what their product looks like, and I want that to be part of my experience and part of the gift I give to my family to say, well, this is how a Singapore crew looks. This is what Belgian Air looks like, and that's part of it. It's just another level to the game that I think it's fun, but it always comes back to this. I would never be able to do this if not for the points and miles game. And my finale is overseas flights to Europe are overnight. I can show up to Amsterdam feeling like dirt, feeling cramped up and tired and terrible, or there's a chance I could get some kind of a good sleep and a good experience, and I could show up refreshed and ready to go. And since I do smaller, shorter trips, it's worth that showing up fresh and ready to go.
That was a really, really good argument. It's almost hard for me to even compete with that because there's so much to unpack there. One thing I do want to mention while you were talking was that QC Man said that you really don't want to be near Adam and his kids.
Oh, no. But if you're in economy, you don't have a choice.
It's true. It's true. I mean, all the reasons that you mentioned were absolutely correct. I mean, I think all of it comes down to also you yourself as a person, because you are a worldwide traveler. You want to show the culture and different countries to your family, to your son. And I think all of those are just very noble things to do. And you can do it in style. You can do it in a way that you can be refreshed. You can be ready to go for that next adventure. I think there's a lot that goes into that, because when you put it that way, the business class flights can really help and make that travel experience so much more better. One thing that I would say on the other side being that they're overrated is one thing you mentioned was that, it's a different conversation, like you said, but the price, right? So it's clearly, if you're talking about money, economy
Oh,
versus business class, obviously, if
yeah.
you just do it by cash, you can't because it's just so expensive. If you use points, it's now available, but you are still using more points for business class than you are for economy class. And so then the question becomes, if I can get one business class seat for three economy seats, like which is better? That's going to be more of a discussion of how you look at things and what you're looking for in your trip individually. And so I would just mention that that's why I think it may be a little overrated, because you do have to spend more points and you have to, but you're going to the same spot. At the same time, it's over super fast. So there's an argument between airlines and hotels where you have like a hotel redemption. You have the hotel for the whole day, all 24 hours. You may not spend your day in the hotel for 24 hours, but you have access to that area for at least 24 hours when you're at the property. For the airlines, you do have long haul flights, 12 hours, 16 hours, so forth, but it's only for that amount of time. It's less than a day typically. And so if that's the case, you're really spending a lot of points for very little time. But I guess you do get that comfort while you're there during that time too. I will also say it is also about if you're traveling with family versus by yourself or like a couple. Obviously, if you have a family, you have to pay for everybody. So you may not even have the opportunity to want to take your 2-year-old child in business class because that's not something that would be good or worthwhile of your money or points. And there's also, if you're traveling and you're someone like me who's a more of an average sized individual, I do actually get a lot of leg room in economy. Like I have about 6 inches of space between
Yeah.
my knee and the seat. I'm no Spencer Johnson, I'm no Daniel Braun. Like I have plenty of room for my legs. And I know for you, Luke, you're strong guy, big broad shoulders, and so I can see how that can be very cramped very fast. And for a short flight, like from Columbus to like JFK or something, that's like not terrible. But like to go to like Amsterdam or anywhere like Africa, anything you want to do, that would probably wear on you a lot more. So I can definitely see that. But those are the reasons why I think business class flights can be a little bit overrated.
Yeah, and yeah, so I'm short enough to where I have plenty of leg room, but I'm also and I hate to use the excuse, but when you get older, comfort becomes more important. When I was a
Mhm.
sailor, I slept under a desk for 3.5 years on concrete. So you can
Mm.
with the younger you are, it's fine, but the older you get, the more you do value that extra comfort and that extra stuff. But and I know a lot of people in the chat are saying sometimes it's prohibitively expensive to fly peak travel with 4 people. Yeah, I don't know if that's true. You just have to figure out how to earn the miles. I mean,
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
I do it. I fly peak time with 3 and 4 people, and it is tough. All this
Mhm.
is work. And then if you, like you said, if you put a dollar or a value on those points, then that is a cash price essentially, and business class is exponentially more expensive. So
Mhm.
it could be prohibitively expensive for some people, but I just I the biggest thing for me, and it's funny, the biggest thing for me is the and I don't have any kind of mental health issues. I don't suffer from anxiety or anything like that, but the 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 comfort of not being around all those people and having to put up with being around all those people in such a small area is worth it for me.
Mm. Yeah, and I think a lot of people are resonating with you. I mean, JP is very direct as usual. Luke for the win. So we know how JP feels about business class, but he's a pro at this. So that's definitely a great thing to see for him. Cody says business class adds to the experience and is something to look forward to, which you said in your argument, Luke, and I think that's definitely a great thing to
I
say
get
because
so excited waiting for that. Like
yeah,
I can't wait to
yeah.
do this. This is so fun.
Yeah. Yeah, or it's like, I can't wait to be packed into sardines on Southwest, that's like me tomorrow, I'm like, I can't wait for my Southwest flight to be, like, herded like cattle on the Greyhound bus, that's kinda like how I look at
Yeah.
flights, but no, it does add a level of excitement when you have a business class seat coming up. Um, Code with Urtiza says, "Agree with Luke, but booking round trip international business class for 2 people, all with points, require a ton of points that's hard to earn without welcome offers," and so, that's
Yeah.
true.
Pick your hard. sitting in steerage with the alpaca and the chicken coop, that's hard. Earning points and miles is hard. It's a different kind of hard. Choose
Yep,
your hard.
that's true. Yep, there's always going to be a plus and minus everywhere. RemGB's here. Travel during peak travel windows and with larger group, like a family of 4. He's meaning like Thanksgiving break, like spring break, things like that. It just makes business class harder to do.
That's when I have to travel because the kids are in school. So I get it. It's tougher. Like I said, choose your hard. I mean, with let's say family of 4, you have 2 kids. Do you want to get to your destination when mom and the 2 kids are, you know how families are when they get in a bad mood? Like they're going to make sure nobody has fun. Choose your hard.
That's for sure. I like that. I'm going to adopt that from you, Luke. Choose your hard, because there's definitely going to be trade-offs for everything. Dong Kim says business class is incredibly helpful when traveling for 6+ hours. Arrive at destination well rested and ready to enjoy the destination, especially red-eye flights. And you alluded to this as well. And you certainly do a lot more red-eyes than I do and travel to much more countries than I do. And so it'll be interesting to see how I feel after I come back from my honeymoon later this month and how this will have changed my opinion about it, because I haven't really been on an overnight across the pond situation where I will experience that. It's
tough. It's tough for certain people. I prioritize sleep in my life, and I prioritize quality sleep, and it's tough to travel like that.
Oh yeah. So I think we're going to do one more thing here. We're going to make sure that we get your voices in. This is the final question here. So again, if you have not yet joined, you can go to menti.com and enter the code. We're going to look to see what you guys think about business class flights. I'm pretty sure I know what the answer is going to be, but just for the fun of it, we're going to go ahead and have your voices heard too. So I'm going to put that on the stage here. For business class flights, is it underrated or overrated? What do you think? We're going to start the polling right about now. So here we go. Is it underrated or overrated? Put in my vote here. So a lot of you think it's underrated. A lot of think it's overrated. Underrated, of course, meaning that you like business class flights. Overrated meaning that you still like it, but you'd prefer economy because you want to save money or that sort of thing. Again, I think it's not like a super clear like landslide victory for anybody, but I think it's definitely more on one side than the other. And for business class flights in particular, certainly it looks like there are more people that prefer to fly them over economy for the reasons that you mentioned, Luke. And so that's kind of what
some people, it's like my Filipino head of security, Dino. When I meet him places overseas, he flies straight economy. And it doesn't bother him one bit. Like he's always refreshed when he but he's tougher than me. He's super tough. So I'm not that tough anymore, man. So I need a little bit of help to get around.
Yeah, well, he's your head of security for a reason, right?
Because he's tough as nails. He's hard.
That's right. All right. So I think we're going to stop the voting there. So 12-5. So definitely a clear winner there. Uncle Luke, you take it again. Underrated business class flights. That's exactly what people think are going on. So it's the end of that now, that slideshow. I'm going to go back to our pretty faces. I appreciate you being on here, Luke, and we have some final comments about here. QC Man says, have you ever flown international business class before my honeymoon? I have not. Only domestic and like Delta One and the Mint from JetBlue cross country, but never overseas. So this will be quite the experience. I'm looking forward to it. Like Luke said, you kind of get giddy with excitement when you're going to go fly overseas in the business class or first class flight. Kay says, I agree with Luke about finding the points. I simply sat there and pondered if my town accepted cards for property taxes. It does. So I'm signing up for the extra 1.5 CFE. Okay, good for you, man. That's great. So do you have any last minute comments, concerns, Luke, or are you pretty good?
I don't want to pile on, but as far as the business class flights, I mean, you're a married man now. Not only is it good for you, but to provide your wife with business class flights, man, that was a really big deal for me, because she had not flown a lot and we had never experienced that sort of international business class, the way the whole thing's set up. That's not something for us. So the fact that we can go do that, I think that's awesome as a husband, that you can do that for your family. You have to provide, obviously, but to go above and beyond and provide something that's beyond most of our, resources. I think it's really awesome. It's a great gift to give to somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm looking forward to it, and I'm definitely hoping to do more of these business class, first class flights in the future, especially internationally. That's one of my goals, is trying to be more worldly like yourself. But I think we're gonna wrap it up here. Again, there's 180 of you still left here in the chat, so thank you for staying here. If you don't mind, go ahead and press the like button on your way out. That would be awesome if you're getting value. Luke, I want to just thank you again so much for coming onto the channel. It's been a wonderful debate series, and I hope that we can do more of these. Especially with different topics as they come up, and we're gonna try to make this more of a regular thing.
Yeah, for sure. And if anybody here knows Daniel Braun personally, check on him today, because the Penn State Nittany Lions are about to be defeated by the Buckeyes.
Oh, that's
So
unfortunate.
he may need somebody to check in on him and see if he's okay.
Yeah, I know that guy loves Penn State, but
Yeah.
sometimes you just gotta take the L and kind of figure out how to move on. All right. So if no other things, no other thoughts here, appreciate again all of you being here. Have a good rest of your weekend. I appreciate you guys, and we will both see you guys in the next video on either of our channels. Take care, guys.